that with all my heart. And I will not let go of that. He is my creator. Yes. Comes to God. Yes? Good points to start on. Secondly, we're looking at stewardship. God is Savior and He is God is Savior and Redeemer. Matthew chapter 1 verse 21. Matthew 1:21. Someone quickly. You can look at the text and keep your finger, find them quickly so that when I call them, you bring forth a son, you shall call his name Jesus, and he shall save his people from their sins. He has come to be Savior, even Redeemer. Isaiah 54 verse 8. Isaiah 54 verse 8. Someone. He is our Redeemer. Believe that with all your heart. We would be lost. We would be doomed without a Savior and a Redeemer. And God saw it in His mercy. Hey, mankind needs to be saved. Hallelujah. He says, I'm not only your creator, I'm not only owner, but I'm also Savior and Redeemer. Why did He redeem you? That's the big question. Why do you think that you were worth redeeming? We were on Satan's side through sin. All right, let's see what Genesis chapter 1 verse 26 says. Let us, in our image, after our likeness. Yes? All right. So from the beginning, something was established with mankind. But mankind lost that. Gave that over to someone else. And as a result, Christ came. He says, I'm going to redeem you. For you were bought with a price. Let's look at God is love. 1 John 4 verse 8. 1 John 4 verse 8. So if you don't love, you ain't no God. That's true? You sure it's true? So I can know God and don't love you? You sure that's impossible? So if I don't love you whom I can see, when it comes to God who I can't see, we got trouble. He is the embodiment of love. He is provider. Matthew 6:33. I want a young person to read this one. Maybe this was a memory text sometime long ago. It begins with seek. But seek ye and you realize I said I want a young person, boy, a young person read it for me, yes? All of you young in Jesus Christ. Yes, please. So God is still provider. He says, seek me first. The kingdom of God and he says, all these things, every single thing will be added unto you. So we have established that God is creator, God is owner, God is Savior, Redeemer. He has redeemed us because He established us in the very beginning as stewards. But somehow we gave that away in exchange for something else. But the Word of God says that God is still love. Hallelujah. And He still provides for us. And He says, seek me first, and everything will be added unto you. I hear in a voice, but I ain't seeing it. I got on my glasses. Yes, I see you now. Everything that he has in store for you. Not what you desire, what you want. Everything that he has in store for you is for you. And once you seek him, you shall receive. But not in the time that you may want it, but in his time. So qualifying some things here. Yes, thanks for the question. Before. So give it the verses before.
It says, therefore take no thought, saying, what shall I eat? Or what shall I drink? Or wherewithal shall I be clothed? For after all these things do the Gentiles seek. For your heavenly Father knoweth that ye have need of these things. But seek ye first the kingdom of God, and these things, clarifying what was read before, shall be added unto you. So there's the basic necessities that you have need of. God has said, put him first, and he will look after your needs.
All right, so take no thought for these things, what you shall eat and what you shall drink and what you shall put on and all these things, the basic necessities of life. Christ is saying, I have them covered. You don't have to worry about that because I have created you. I am your owner. I have even redeemed you. And so I have everything in store for you right here in my hands. So don't take no thought. Don't worry about it. Don't give yourself no headache. And as some people say, the worriations. Yeah, let that be God's worry. He has that under control. So he says he is provider. He has everything for you that you need. And he said he shall supply it. So in terms of stewardship, man is who? He's a steward, but based on the slide that's here, hey, he is a created being. We began with Genesis 1:26. Brother Moore, you were reading, and it goes on verse 27 and 28. You want to continue there for us, Brother Moore? Genesis 1:26. You read that one already? You can. Yes. All right. So it's established the fact that we are created beings. Anybody believe anything else other than that? We all believe and embrace the fact that we are created beings? Sure? I just hear a few. Are we all on the same premise that we are created beings?
Yes.
Okay, good. I saw a hand somewhere. That's my roommate.
One thing that we have God put everything in the system that's a man. Created man.
Yes.
And put it in his own hand.
Yes.
In other words, God made a man, or made a mountain. A mountain.
All right, I hear you. Okay, that man, I can't worry about me in trouble there. Because if you, just trust me, if the breath goes, what happens is still a mannequin about here. They can hang up clothes on me. You pass through Broad Street and see something standing up that looking like me. And you might say, hey, Blackie, what's going on? Huh? But I understand what you're saying. Yes. The created being was complete when God breathed his breath into that body. Yes? So we're created. Romans 6:23 lets us know that we are redeemed. What does Romans say? Romans 6:23 say? Yes? Yes? The wages of sin is death, but the gift of God is eternal life. It's a gift that he has given to us. We are redeemed through a priceless gift. You can't put value to that. We are redeemed. Romans 5, 6 to 10. Romans 5, 6 to 10. Quickly. Yeah. Yes, please. Praise God. I feel to ask my wife a question. Would you die for me?
Yes. Yes.
She said yes. Hallelujah. Just have me on edge there for a little bit. Huh? She smacked the smile first, yes? I'll make sure she gets that smile first to ease the nerves, huh? Make sure she don't keep me too nervous. Yes, I like the smile, but I'm thankful she said yes. Bible says scarcely would a man die for him. Huh? Look, Gary, you asking if he didn't think he'd die for you? Oh, okay. Let me ask Pastor Haynes. Yes, you didn't die for me. We are not close? Lord have mercy. You don't hear me at the time, that's not what he said? No. You don't need that? Somebody already? So, my wife's death, and Pastor Haynes' death can't do anything for me. That's what you say? You sure? It just made me feel good that my wife would die for me, but it just hurt my feelings because you say he could die for me. That's all I do. But someone died for me. And there's a reason, a purpose behind his death for me, and it means a lot more. For its redemption. For all the bad things that I've done. Because of that death on Calvary's cross, I get a second chance. And if I mess up again, he gives me a third chance. And the question is asked, how many times should I forgive a man? The response is 70 times 7. You know when I was small, he actually multiplied that. I mean, it was there saying, boy, 490 times. Yeah? 490, and that's the cutoff. After that, done. And as a little boy, I just marked it down. Trust me, I marked it down. 2 gone, 3 gone, 4. I realized that I going up the road quick. And I can get to 490 soon, but it's not literal. It's just saying, as often as forgiveness is needed, it should be extended. Yes. Praise the Lord. I passed 490 long time. But grace will always be greater than sin. The Bible says in Romans 8:17, it highlights the fact of obeying ears. Someone has that? Romans 8:17? Yes? Amen. John 8:31, someone? Right? And finally, John 13:35. If you have love for one for another. So ears and being disciples are part of stewardship when our relationship with God is where it's supposed to be. We recognize that we are heirs to the throne of God, and men will recognize who we are based on how we live and treat each other, that we are disciples of Christ. Boy, you want to break down that question? Break it down for me. Break it down. Huh? Yeah. Keep going, huh? Pastor, you got time? You are right on the button. Christ is saying, this is demonstration not about you, but about me. For persons are looking on for something. And they're looking for a picture of who Christ is. And the Word of God is saying that being a disciple, not a man, not just a human being, but a disciple. If we understand discipleship very clear, and we spent some time speaking about discipleship and Northern Light the other night. Discipleship is what he's calling us to. And it helps others to know who we belong to. It makes a statement to the world that we are not just men and women and created beings living here on earth, but it exemplifies who is creator, who is owner, who is redeemer. It lets us know whose we are. And lets them know and the world know whose we are. And so discipleship is very, very important this evening. And this is our last slide for today. Man is loved and restored. John 15:15-16 says, John 15:15-16. So the very last slide. Mm-hmm.
For the servant knoweth not what his Lord doeth.
True.
But I have called you friends, for all things that I have heard of my Father, I have made known unto you. Ye have not chosen me, but I have chosen you and ordained you, that ye should go and bring forth fruit, and that your fruit should remain, that whatsoever ye shall ask of the Father in my name,
yes,
he give it.
Praise the Lord. Began by saying that we are no longer called servants, because a servant doesn't know what his master is doing, but the Word of God says we are called. We are called. Do you let your friends know what's going on in your life? If you have a true friend, you let them know what's going on in your life? Or you got categories of friends? Jesus has category of friends? Does he categorize and say, well, these will know some and these will know some, and I can give some to them and give some to them, and I ain't giving them, I can't trust them. If you are a friend of God, you know everything that the master is doing. He says, I don't call you servants, you are friends. For everything that I heard of the Father, that I made known unto you. He says, you did not choose me, but I chose you. I ordained you that you go and bring forth fruit. Your fruit should remain, that whatsoever ye shall ask of the Father in my name, he may give it to you. We are loved and restored. Hallelujah. We are friends of God. I love that song too.
Friendship.
Yes?
Friendship tells us that we are close together.
Yeah.
Now, if we are close together, then what comes out of the relationship should be seen towards our community. Right? And again, I go back to those who come in that way. Because Jesus says, you are my friends. And then we relate to him like as our friend. Because we don't relate to him as a friend. When we not sharing our friend what is in the heart.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
So therefore, if it is connected to the source, then it will relate outside of the source. And then those who are around us will see and gravitate towards this love that Jesus is in our hearts.
So in other words, we are not only in favor with God, but we're also in favor with. We not only have a responsibility to God, but we have a responsibility to. And if we are friends with God, we should be friends with. You can't say your friend, me and God is friends, but I'm not friends with you. That equation wrong. Something wrong with that equation. Yes? It does not operate that way. We are stewards and partners. Man is a steward and a partner. 1 Corinthians 4 verse 12.
Let man so honor us as ministers of Christ and stewards of the mysteries of God. Moreover, it is required in stewards that a man become faithful.
Yes. 4, 1 and 2, yes, sorry. I called something different, but she read the right thing, I think. Yes? Let a man so account of us as of the ministers of Christ and stewards of the mysteries of God. Moreover, it is required in stewards that a man be found faithful. We are stewards. We are in a partnership with God. Finally, man is a recipient. Deuteronomy chapter 8, verse 18. So we must remember who? That God is the one who giveth power to get wealth. Don't think that you acquire it and it's me and I work hard for this and because of all that I do, this is why I'm here today and because of all that I have done and all the studies that I have done and because I have all the masters and PhDs, because of me that I have this money and this wealth and I excel. It is not because of you. It is because of the power of God. Now I'm going to tell you about that. Give me 5 minutes to tell you about that. It can only be the power of God to reach this mind of mine. Because my mother and father tried to reach it, but they could not. The intellects within the books of the school system tried to reach it, but they could not. Because nothing is sticking. And they didn't like reading. So parents, nor teachers, nor books couldn't reach it, but someone could. And as a result of that, I acquired an education. Boy, I tell you. Remember this talk with sawdust? I don't believe I had this sawdust there. Things were pretty rough. I was no book boy. Give me a do it with my hands. And learn by what I see. But God in His infinite wisdom appealed to this mind of mine and opened it in such a way that it can receive the things which are being taught. How dare I now get up to say, how dare I now take it upon myself to say, because I have studied, Because I spent some time in school. Because we spent 4 years in Trinidad. I can now boast of where I am today. And it's because of me. If I didn't work hard, I would have never get it. And if I didn't spend some time burning the midnight oil, I wouldn't have done that. How dare I, if I should even choose to go that path? How dare I say now that I am able to live and to even sustain not myself, but even my wife? Because of me. We must always remember who is the source of power. We must always remember who giveth us all things so that we can be wealthy not only because of money, but wealthy because we have a good state of mind. Lost. Yes.
Explain those things to us in a way, yes, that we should do it. But you talk about the school for 4 years and stuff like that. But how can I really understand this knowledge, right, or this level of secret that you are talking about here this morning? Because for me,
First, you must identify what wealth I'm talking about.
all right, and then you gotta say, because
Yes.
I was the one who walked the line.
And I established it just now. It's not only money I'm talking about. We are wealthy because of Christ.
Yes, I agree with that.
Yes.
I'm not denying that. But to fully understand what you are saying, how do we gain knowledge and know that they were from Christ? Yes, we can read from the pulpit, but is that all to it? Is that all that we need to understand from the pulpit? How do we acquire it? We don't apply it, but we must know it.
All
We
right.
must know it by studying it, not as for the cause that we did, but for us, we do really go knowledge, knowledge what we do by God. Right? And when we study by what the course of the prophecy, then we acquire the knowledge that God said we should acquire. Then we understand His will for us
All right.
in our lives.
I thought you wanted me to start back from the beginning of the presentation.
That little bit of relationship is like husband and wife.
Because we're talking about relationship between man and God, and we started out by saying that God is creator. God is owner. God is savior and redeemer. God is provider. And in understanding those principles, we come to the understanding that the wealth that we acquire is because we have a creator who is God. We have an owner. He says, you can seek me and everything will be added unto you. Don't take thought for where you're going to wear and where you're going to eat and where you're going to live and all these things. I have that under control. So the presentation from beginning to this point helps us to know where we are. Helps us to understand how do we acquire wealth by first of all acknowledging who is creator. From the moment we dismiss who is creator, we got problems. From the time we decide, oh well, I own things and I run things, we got problems. From the time we put salvation in our own hands, we got problems. From the time we decide, I just get everything that I want, I provide for myself, we have problems. And so in understanding all these principles today, as it relates to stewardship and relationship between God and man, it puts us in the right perspective, yes, that all that we have is because we are recipients of the power of God to the wealth and the well-being of each person sitting here today. The end. Just making sure that you have the more slides there just now. I see him touch the computer. But certainly, this is a powerful message. If we get this premise right, I guarantee you by the time we get the end of the week, some things must change. Some things have to change. Yes? Because certainly God is all powerful. From the moment that you make the excuse, oh, I'm just a man, you deny the very power that's in you. So So while I'm just a man, I understand that I am created in the image of God. And after his likeness. And he's calling me to a higher standard. So we praise God for his word to us today. Thank God for the first presentation. As we look at his relationship, our relationship with him. And certainly as we go forward, I pray that God will bless us even more tremendous. Amen? Let's bow our heads. Father, we thank you for your word today. We thank you that you have seen it fit to call us friends. You have established such a relationship, or rather you want to establish such a relationship with us, that we recognize that nothing is outside of our reach as long as it's God's will for our lives. Bless your people today. Empower us, Lord. May we never be the same again. May we look at you with a different outlook. And certainly, Father, may our lives be even more prepared for when you shall return. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. There's a young man sitting up front here with me. He looked away. He called me somebody else. Pastor Roosevelt Haynes. He is the stewardship director of the conference. There are other portfolios under his belt. Trust as well. What else we got there? Publishing is under his belt as well, but he comes under the umbrella of stewardship and trust with us this week. He has a passion for stewardship in the lives of individuals, and he's here to help us to understand some concepts as it relates to stewardship, but based on the Word of God. Amen? 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 Based on the Word of God. And so I pray that as he speaks with us, as he enlightens us, as he shares with us, that certainly we will recognize the power of God speaking to our lives even from here after. I'm not sure if he coming up here or staying on your ass. Alright, so pray for him as he shares with us for our next presentation.
Good morning, everybody. That sounded really nice. You see, the service may sound nice, but you're gonna hear it twice. Yeah? Good morning, everybody. Good morning. Oh, happy Sabbath to you. I didn't say same to you. I said happy Sabbath to you. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. It's good to be here with you in this part of the island. This is the northern part of the island. It took me a while to get down here. You said to get up here? Oh, okay. It took me a while to get up here. Whatever it is, down or up, it took me a while. But it's good to be here with us this morning as we share in terms of building a stewardship lifestyle. That's what we've been talking about this week. I'm going to be with you like Terry. You know that, right? Yeah, I'm going to be here. We're here today. On Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday, we'll be at Chance Hall. On Wednesday and Friday, we'll be at Northern Light. Friday night, we'll be at Northern Light, and then we're going to be back here next Sabbath. Everybody got that? No. I want to let you know I'll be coming from all the way down St. Philip. That's wrong. That's so wrong, man. That just sounds so wrong, man. I'm going to be coming from all the way in St. Philip. In St. Philip. I'm going to come all the way in St. Lucie. All right, St. Friday. And I want to make sure that when I come, we have persons present. Is that a reasonable request? Come on, church. Is that a reasonable request? Yeah, we're talking about stewardship, so make sure that I use my time wisely. I got to be able to utilize my time wisely, all right? And so therefore, we want to encourage all of you to be with us. We have a wonderful program tonight. I'm not here myself. Yeah, you can hear me, but if I'm not hearing myself, good, wonderful. Thank you very much. If I'm not hearing myself, it means that I will try to shout, and then it hurts my throat. Yeah? Only singers can understand that. And preachers. Now we're talking about stewardship. I'm going to make a disclaimer. I'm going to make a disclaimer. I am not here to talk to you about money. All right, that's my disclaimer. I'm not here to talk to you about money. I will end up talking about money, but I'm not here to talk to you about money. So we're not going to talk about money. There's going to come a time when I will have to talk about money because that's part of it. I must talk about money, but I'm not here to talk to us about money. And I want to encourage us to be here, well, not here, but to be where we will be every evening. I think we're starting at 7:15, which will give you enough time to get home, get a change of clothes, and come to church, because it's still church. Yeah? Come on, is it still church? Yeah, it is still church. It is still church. Yeah, tomorrow night is Sunday. Yeah, Sunday night, 7:15, or you all start earlier? 7:15 is good? Okay, good. 7:15 tomorrow evening. Monday, 7:15. Tuesday, 7:15. All at Chance Hall. Wednesday evening, 7:15. Northern Light. Friday evening, Friday night, Sabbath night, 7:15. Northern Light. And then next Sabbath, we're going to be back here for 9 o'clock. What time did I say? 9 o'clock. Now, the reason why we want to get here for 9 o'clock is so that we can finish up in time, so that we can do all that we need to do, because we will not be having an evening session. Alright, we're not having an evening session this evening nor next Sabbath. And so that is 2 presentations that you will not get, that you have to try to find a way to get them inside. Everybody understand it? You can hear me still, right? Yeah. Okay, good. So we're going to be missing 2 sessions, which is this Sabbath afternoon and next Sabbath afternoon. And so I have to see how I can get everything. Oh. You sure? So I have to see if we can get everything so that we'll be able to get all of the sessions in. All right, and now each session builds on the previous session. You with me? Each session builds on the previous session. So that's why it is important. Because when you come, if you come only this Sabbath and next Sabbath, then you'll be wondering, how did we get here? So I want you to understand how we got there. And so therefore you need to be Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. Ooh, yeah, this sounds good. Yeah, it was the batteries. All right. Let's bow our heads for prayer. Father, we give you thanks for your love and your goodness towards us. You've been such a wonderful God. We thank you for bringing us into your house of worship. And we pray as we go through these sessions today that your Holy Spirit will guide, direct, and give understanding. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. Now, I want you to understand that the sessions are interactive sessions, which means that I'm not going to do all the talking. In fact, sometimes you're going to do some talking about yourself. Right? So we're going to do it from a little different angle. Now, I'm going to ask you some questions. Why stewardship? Why do we need stewardship? I put some reasons up there. If you agree with the reasons, I'm going to go through them one by one. If you agree with them, you can say, yes, I agree with that. If you don't agree with it, say, Pastor, no, I don't agree with that one. One of the reasons why we should have stewardship is because there are some challenges in the church today that needs to be resolved. You agree with that? Come on. Do you agree with that? Do you agree that as a church, we're not doing what we're supposed to do? Come on, talk to me now. Do you agree with that? As a church, are we doing what we're supposed to do? No. Yeah. So why are we not doing what we're supposed to do? Is there a lack of commitment of members to the work of God? Yes. I only hear 3 people say yes. Yes. Watch this, brethren. If there's to be growth in your life, there must also be honesty in your life. And the only way that you will know that you will grow or that you're growing when you understand where you are. Are you listening to me? No. If I only hear 3 people say yes all the time, I will just say, come by me, and then do this structure program with you 3 because the rest don't need it. Is there a lack of commitment of members to the work of God? Are the leaders not members? Wait a minute. Is there a difference between leaders and members? Alright, well let's, for the purpose of this presentation, members include everyone who has membership in the church. Alright, for the purpose of this presentation. If you have other presentations and they want members and leaders to be separated, they will tell you that. But for the purpose of this one, all members are all persons who have membership who have been baptized into the Seventh-day Adventist Church. Is that reasonable, everybody? Oh, wonderful. I hope that resolves that person's crisis. Because there's a lack of commitment of members to the work of God, there are insufficient members involved in the work of the church. Am I right? In fact, studies show that 10 to 20% of the members do all of the work. Which means that you have 80% of the members sitting down watching, the 10 to 20% doing it. Why do you know it's true?
Because even she didn't leave us ignorant. He said, the laborers are few.
Mm-hmm.
We want more laborers.
So we're making sure that Jesus don't tell lies. That's what we have to be. We have to be making sure that Jesus tells us. Some Jesus says laborers are few. We say, okay, Jesus, we don't want you to be there. So we want to make sure that laborers are few.
I'm saying that Jesus is correct.
No, I'm with you, sis. I'm with you. I'm just. So yes, we can agree that there are insufficient members doing the work of God. Insufficient members involved in the work. And because there are insufficient members involved in the work of God, the church is not impacting the community as it should. Did I say that we have to be honest? Are you impacting the community as you should? So that's why we need stewardship, because the purpose of the church is to impact the community. Amen! Since y'all didn't agree with that one, I didn't agree with myself. The purpose of the church is to impact the community. If a church is in a community and they're not impacting the community, they're just a set of people who meet in a building. I really won't call them we'll call them a club for the next three things. Next question, is there a lot of programs and activities in the church to conserve and to gain new members, to conserve and to gain new members? Do you believe that? Come on, do you believe that? Come on, do you believe that? When you're going to talk to me, please. Don't let me come from all the way in St. Philip to come all up here to talk to you and then you don't talk back to me. Yeah, because I know they're talking to myself. Are there enough resources in the church to do what we need to do as a church? But who said yes? Who said yes? Put your hand up. We brave enough. Every love of God is in our hearts. We have enough. Oh. So, wait. I need to go a little higher up for this one because I want to see everybody for this minute. Okay. You look different from over here, man. Does the church have enough sufficient resources to do what God to do God's work?
What is or I ask the question, what is the resources that we have?
You asked me what? You said, wait. Just a minute. All right. There's something that I practice when I'm doing presentations to 13-year-olds and 14-year-olds and 15-year-olds. I I know from time to time they let them talk to each other and say things to each other, and I give them a little time to do that. But then I put my hand in the air, and when I put my hand in the air, it's to say to them, it's my time to talk. Is that okay, everybody? Yeah, so when I don't mind you talking to your friend, I don't mind. And when you see Pastor Hans put his hand in there, and he says, Pastor Hans, time to talk. All right? Is that okay? Yeah. Okay, then now since you asked a question just now, I don't know colors too good, so I'll call it bluish green. Go ahead.
What is the resources that we have?
What are the resources that we have?
Not a public. People are resources.
Okay.
Color, skills, so that's what we're talking about.
Okay, so we talking about we have people. Yeah? Yeah, we have people in the church? Yes. Yeah? You sure? Tell somebody pinch you to just make sure that you're a person and not a mannequin. That's the first time I've heard that one. That one just blew me away, man. The master called me a mannequin. I've never seen it like that. I like that one. Can I use that? Can I use that one? Yeah. You made a mannequin and then you what is it that we are mannequins are biodegradable? Yes, yeah. But the question is, are there sufficient resources? Do we have enough people in church? Come on, do we have enough people in church? Yeah, we have enough people in church. So whether we're using all or not, we have enough. So therefore, if we have enough people, it means that we have enough abilities. Yeah? And we have enough talents, right? Yeah? And if we have enough people, enough talents, and enough abilities, it means that we have enough time. Oh boy. I'm going to get there. I told him I'm not talking about money this morning. I'm talking about money this morning alone. Do we have enough time? Come on, do we have enough time? Is there anyone here who has less than 24 hours in their day? Anybody got less than 24 hours in their day? Anybody got less than 7 days in their week? Anybody got less than 30 or 31 days in a month? So we have time. We have time, right? Huh? Well, February. Well, you Mrs. get real picky, boy. So what's the February got 28 days? Since you understand that one, they got 11 more months now. Then pick up February. So we have enough time. We have enough human beings. We have enough talents and abilities. Do we have enough money? Yeah, I didn't mean to talk about money, but I need to talk about money. I apologize. Do we have enough money in the church? Yeah? I want to ask you treasurers because you're all going to say yes, my treasurers may tell me something different. A voice just said to me, you may have enough money in the church, but not in the treasury. It means that the money is stored somewhere else. The money is supposed to be stored in the treasury, but it's stored somewhere else, probably for safekeeping.
I don't think so.
So we do agree that there are sufficient resources in the church to do what God wants us to do. Yes. You agree with that? Yes. Let me say what else I have here. Do you think that materialism and entertainment are gaining what have I got there? Gaining prominence in the minds of the members?
Long time.
You're about to be honest for yourself now.
Long time.
Some of you like to come to church and skip the tea. Did they get that one right? Wait, you just skip the tea? You weren't supposed to laugh at that one. That was supposed to be a serious one. There are some of us that sometimes our sermon preaches and the person makes us laugh and we feel that we get something, we go home and we say church is good. And then we have another sermon that comes that is serious. It calls our Christianity into question and it gets a little deep. And we say my church ain't good today, man, because I enjoyed myself. Did they I step on your toes, just tell me so that I can tell you move them off the road. But I'm going to step. So materialism, I wonder if you move this one, but they're multi-church districts, and because of multi-church districts, it increases the impact of the pastor. Yes, pastor. We need more pastors. What's the question? Can we afford them? But let me have enough money in the church. Let me have enough money in the church, then we should be able to do, what we have to do is get it put in the treasury, and once we put it in the treasury, then we have enough to employ more pastors. Amen! Amen! I can join this one all the way, say amen! Amen. Stewardship is more than about money. I want to think about that. Stewardship is more than about money. It is about God's people. It's about what? Oh, let me see. If you're one of God's people, put your hand in the air. I want to make sure that everybody put their hand in the air. Put your hand high. Put your hand high. No. Take your hands down. I'm going to say something that I want you to take very, very seriously. Right? Very, very, very seriously. If someone asks you if you're a Christian, put your hand in the air, and you're a Christian, what should you do? Put your hand in the air because I'm a Christian. If I'm part of God's people, and somebody asks me, am I part of God's people? Put your hand in the air, what should I do? Because watch it! Whatever we do on earth is recorded in heaven. And then the question is asked, are you a child of God? You keep your hand in your pocket. Yeah, you're a child of God because I hear. And you keep your hand in your pocket. You have not indicated by the will you should indicate that you're a child of God. And really and truly that will mark down heaven against you. Did not show that they were a child of God. When asked. So I'm going to give you a chance. I'm going to give you a chance to put your hand in the air again. I know somebody will rebel against that one, but that's all right. Are you part of God's people? If you're part of God's people, put your hand in the air. Oh, praise the Lord! Praise the Lord! You see, that's what it's called. You know what I just gave you all? I just gave you all some grace, you know. That's grace that has been extended there. No, let me just block out that one that you did before. Yes, ma'am. You keep your hand in the air still.
I've heard of the story of the church in St. Lucie. The man who came there, God bless his time. He said, all Christians stand.
It was the church in St. Lucie?
Yeah, the church Christians stand. Not one member of the church.
Well. All right. Well, let me just do something here. I have no weapons. I have no weapons. That's another disclaimer. I'm coming with no weapons. I'm not going to put any guns in anybody's head. Because at the end of the day, our first presentation talks about what we're talking about. Stewardship is all about your relationship with God. That's what it's all about. Your relationship with God and your willingness. I see your hand. Your willingness to be committed to that relationship. So stewardship then is about your faith in God and your commitment to His word. That's what stewardship is. Yes.
My question is this, Pastor.
Is it a hard question or an easy question?
I ain't sure how hard it's gonna be.
I have a problem with easy questions.
I ain't sure how hard it's gonna be, or it's gonna be too easy.
Okay, tell me.
How do first? Let me backtrack a little bit. You said every baptized member of the church is a part of the body of Christ.
No, I didn't say that. No. Stop. All right. I didn't say that. The lady asked if leaders and members, a voice asked if leaders and members are different. And they say Everybody is a member. So every person, once you've been baptized in the Seventh-day Adventist Church, you're a member. That's what I say.
Alright.
Alright? Okay, good. Don't take back those words that you don't put in my mouth. Because
I take them back.
Okay, you go ahead now.
I believe then that every baptized member is a part of the body of Christ.
Okay. That's the question?
No.
Okay. So,
The question is this.
mm-hmm.
How do you get the wider body of the church to understand that not only the pastor and the elders are the leaders of the church, but that each one of us who makes up the body of Christ should be a leader in whatever we go to do? How do we get the wider church to understand that? So that there can be full participation.
I thought you were telling me it's not going to be a hard question.
It's not a hard question, Pastor.
For you. Can I say this? Come every night and you'll get the answer to that question. Pardon? I didn't hear that. You want a preview? No, so these people that get spoilers and they don't know what watch the movie. So come every no. The reason why I say come every night because I can't answer that question with just one statement. Right? Because I can answer the question, but I'm not only going to answer the question, I'm also going to show how it can be achieved. You with me? Yeah? You know me, get the spoiler. I'm not just going to answer the question, I'm going to show how it can be achieved. But first of all, what the pastor presented is key. We must understand our relationship with God. And if we don't understand that God is creator and we are created, God is owner and we are the ones who are being owned. God is redeemer and we are the ones who are being redeemed. God is provider and we are the ones who are being provided for. That's key. If you don't have that foundation, everything that I will say for the rest of the week will make no sense. Yes, ma'am. Yeah, that's you? That's my friend. I can say that. Go ahead.
I was in the book total
Membership involvement. Mm-hmm.
And I think that every church member should acquire this book, total membership. This book prepares you for being a disciple and working for Jesus.
Okay. All right. Okay, thank you. She want to know all my presentations. A question? Yes, ma'am. Can you stand, please? Wow. Does a person need to be a baptized member of the church? Of a church? Yeah, to be a part of the body of Christ. In order to be part of the body of Christ, you must be baptized. Yeah? You with me? By immersion. Not sprinkling or dousing. Okay, let me see how I can answer this one. You have to be baptized in Christ to be part of the body of Christ. You with me? Oh, okay, just a minute. Just a minute. I'm getting to the church part. If you're going to grow in Christ, you have to be part of a body of believers. That's what God set it up. God did not set us up to be hermits, where we just get baptized and go back into the mountains and dwell in the cave and read the Bible all day long. No, he didn't set us up. He set us up to come together to fellowship, worship, praise, encourage, motivate each other. Yeah? So if you want to be an effective member of a body of Christ, you must be part of a body of believers. Does that answer your question? I didn't get that. You're listening very well. That doesn't answer my question. Should we wait for the church part? Oh, that's the part you waiting for, church? You're in the church. Oh, okay. I'm just going to say this one straight. No one individual is the church. No one individual is the church. So you can't be by yourself and say, well, I'm the church. You are part of the body of Christ, and the body of Christ is known as the church. Right? So you have to be part of you have to be part of the body of Christ. Yeah? So you've got to be baptized in the church. That will be best for your growth as an individual. If you don't want to grow, then you can go. Are there any kids in here around here that you can recommend to her? Huh? Are you okay, Phil? Oh yeah, the kids are all okay, man. All right, let's go quickly because I have about 16 presentations to do this morning. Stewardship is not about money. It is about God's people, their salvation, and their spiritual life. That's what stewardship is about. It's not about money. God don't need your money. I'm going to say that. I'm going to say God does not need your money. Oh, but then again, let me turn that around. God does not need your money. He don't even need you. He don't even need you. I want you to understand that. God does not need your money, or He does not need you to do His work. Sister White says, He can proclaim His gospel like how He did on Mount Sinai. He can get angels to come and be His messengers. But He has chosen you so that you can become more like Him. So don't believe, well, God needs me. God doesn't need you. And if you're leading and you believe that God needs you and the church can't live without you, you're wrong. You hear me, sis? Yeah. You're wrong until you beat your chest and say, well, the church can't survive without me. All you want to do today? Well, I'm sorry, but nobody can tell you that whether the church survive or not. This is God's church. Amen? And nobody is bigger than God's church. No one is bigger than God's church. Amen? So we need to humble ourselves and recognize that God doesn't need us, but He chose us. Wow! A need is an obligation, right? But a choice is voluntary. I prefer somebody to choose me. Yeah? Wow. That one hit you like how it hit me. God chose you. So what we're going to do this week, what we're going to do this week is all about your faith in God. And your commitment to God's work is all going to be about your salvation and your spiritual life. That's what we're going to work on this week. And if you want to know how you can do all of that, then you've got to be Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday at Chance Hall, Wednesday and Friday at Northern Light, and next Sabbath here. And don't leave for nothing unfinished today. I'm giving you a little preview, a little snapshot. You want to look at it? Mm-hmm. All right, wait. I want to answer that question over the speaker so I can hear.
You stress the one at work. I know you know God's people, their salvation and their spiritual life. So I'm wondering, why stressing on work? I know you're going to salvation and spiritual life. Let's come first.
You want to tell me how to put my spell, see? I just teasing you out. You're not just teasing. Obviously, your salvation, your spiritual life comes first. Yeah, and over that grows your faith in God and your commitment to God's word. I put that one last because I want to linger in your minds. Right? That's why I put that one last. Because if you have a good spiritual walk with God, you're going to be committed to His will. Did they say that? Oh boy. I wonder if I should take that back. Because there may be people here saying, well, I'm not committed to the Lord's work, that means I'm not spiritual. But that's true too. Okay, why are you taking it back there? This is what somebody says. The idea of stewardship. That's it right there? Yeah, you can read it because it was talking about it. You take the time to talk now. Read it together. Just a minute. Those in the back, you can see it? Not so good? Oh. Alright. Alright, those in the front read really loud, so those in the back will know that's what is on the board. Let's go again. The idea? That's what stewardship does. Now, if you can't see from so far, we have seats at the front. All here. Yeah? We can utilize those. Yeah, if you can't see from so far, because I can't do anything about it. Alright, and I want you to see. So come right to front. These two guys can go around some more. Nobody coming, so don't go around. He says stewardship should have a practical bearing. It's not just talk. Stewardship is not just theory. Stewardship is something that should put into practice. Practice. Principles that should be put into practice. She says practical benevolence will give spiritual life to thousands of nominal professors of truth. That's the 80%? Yeah? That's the 80%? That's the ones that only come to church on Sabbath morning between 9 and 12:30. Is he right? Yeah, they get there for 10 o'clock. 11. Get it from 11 to, now I understand that there's some older members of the church who can't make it out, who sometimes get on right with somebody and the person don't come so they can't make it out on Sunday nights and I understand that. But what about those who can make it out? Is that what we're talking about? A nominal professor of truth? Where you just say, okay, yeah, I believe in Christ. Yeah, I believe in God. Yeah, I get baptized. Yeah. But that's as far as it goes. So she says that if you practice the stewardship principles in your life, that you'll be transformed from that nominal professor of truth. And you'll be transformed from being selfish. You don't all to be selfish. Let me see hands of those who are selfish. The rest of you all, not only selfish, but as lawyers. It will transform them from selfish, covetous, worshippers of mammon to earnest, faithful co-workers with Christ in the salvation of sinners. Let me say to those who want to be an earnest, faithful co-worker with Christ. Put your hand in here. That's your desire. Praise the Lord. Jesus says to his disciples, no man can serve two masters, for either he will hate the one and love the other, or else he will hold the one and despise the other. You cannot serve God and, you know, when we were small, there was a game that we used to play in the river on the mine. Yeah? You remember that game? And suddenly people go in the river, bang, river, bang. You remember those ones? And suddenly they've got some people that end up in the river and on the mic at the same time. And you know once you end up in the river on the mic at the same time, you're out. You really can't be in the river on the mic at the same time. You can't be in the house of God and in the world at the same time. If you're like that, you're wasting time. You're either in the house of God or in the world. You're going to make a choice. And that's what Jesus says. You can't have two masters. Let me go quickly. So we'll talk a little bit about the steward. The steward does what? A steward identifies himself with his master. He accepts the responsibilities of a steward. And he must act. Alright, stop. I know some people stop at acts. Some people just stop at acts, just don't know. All they say in their mind is that proper English. That's how people read no more after acts, you know. But they read no more after acts, you know. When they get he must act, you know, they that proper English. The focus on that act, and you got to remove that act. And you got to take off the S. Alright, so listen, brethren. Don't look at the S in acts. Is that alright? He must act in his master's stead, doing as his master would do where he presided. His master's interests become his. So if you're a steward, who's your master? Wait. Is this working? If you're a steward, who is your master? Christ is your master. Christ is your master. I'm going to get to that part. So do you want to be God's steward? Yeah? Do you want to be God's steward? Yeah. You see, because that's key. We come to another key. See, that's what the key there for. See? I put that key just to remind me that this is the key point. Not only must you recognize and understand your relationship with God, but you must purpose in your mind that you want to be a steward of God. There's got to be a decision where? In your mind. That's why the Bible says, let this mind be you, which was also in Christ Jesus. And when the Bible talks about mind, it's not talking about the brain. It's talking about your attitudes and your beliefs. So your attitudes and your beliefs must reflect someone who wants to be a steward of God. What detracts us or attracts us? Selfish, covetous, worshippers of mammon. That's strong language? Well, that's the truth. The only thing that will stop us from being stewards of God is if you're selfish. If you're covetous. You with me, sis? Attentively. Okay. Pardon? So those who have transportation should really use their transportation to bring the word of God. That's what I'm saying. You got a purpose in your mind. Being a steward of God, being a steward of God, it must be a decision you make in your mind. It must be a decision that you must make. Because if you do not make that decision, and that decision is only made when you understand the relationship between you and God. What time is it? You want to help me now? I want to go home. Based on your understanding of your relationship with God, will help you to make a decision in your mind that you want to be God's steward. So the question is asked, do you want to be God's steward? Yeah? Do you want to be God's steward? Stand. Let's pray. Heavenly Father, we have stood because it is our desire to be your steward. We understand that you are creator and owner, redeemer, savior, provider. We are created. We are owned. We are redeemed. We are provided for. We are loved. And so we stand resolving and deciding in our minds that from this moment that we want to be your stewards. And that we want to act not in our interests, but in your interests. Help us to stay committed to this decision. Give us your strength. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. Okay, you can say. I'm going again. Now, you just made a decision. Watch this now. What you have just done just now is that you have covenanted with God. Oh, you didn't know that? Yes. Yeah, you have covenanted with God. Hey, God, I want to be your steward. I'm covenanted with you to use all that I have to your interests. That's a covenant, right? Yeah. That's a covenant. Now, in order to do this, we got to know where the principles are coming from. The principles comes from where? They come from where? They come from the Word of God. They come from the Word of God. They come from the writings of the NOI, and they come from the church policy. Yeah, because we're part of a church. Hello. Yeah? We're not by ourselves operating in our own space. We are operating as members of the body. A member of the Seventh-day Adventist Church. Amen. Because you're not proud to be Seventh-day Adventist. That's who we are. And if that's who we are, then everybody, every organization, every group of persons who come together must have policies and procedures and standards that will direct how they do things. Amen. So we talked about choosing the foundation just now. So we talked about, so now this is what we're going to look at this week. Let me see if I can put it up here quickly. Choosing the foundation. We're building a stewardship lifestyle. Building a what? Stewardship lifestyle. So we're looking at choosing the foundation. Because anything you have a building, you've got to start with if you don't have a good foundation, your building will crack. It will crumble. Fall down. You agree with me? Yeah? That's why some people have size 11 feet. So they can have a good foundation to stand on. Because if you had a tall man, 6'2", 3" in the air, he only had size 3 feet, what would happen to him? He will roll over. Would he not fall down? Yeah, he will fall down. Yes, ma'am. We are as a church, because I'm going to show you the principles that we as a church believe in. Amen? Is that okay with you? I'm not going to give you Pastor Haynes' principles. I'm going to give you the principles that we as a church believe in, that we should be taken from. Let me put it back there. The Bible, the writings of Ellen White, and the church policy. All right? If you don't believe the Bible, that's you. If you don't believe Sister White, that's you too. And if you don't believe in the church policy, that is you also. That you tree. Sis, I don't know what to do with that. But I'm here to share the principles with everybody. With me? Jesus. There was one point in Matthew that Jesus taught for a whole 2 chapters, 3 chapters. From Matthew chapter 5 right down to Matthew chapter 7. Jesus is talking to them. And at the end of that conversation, Jesus gave a little parable. He said, those who hear my words and do it then is like a man who built his house upon a rock. And the winds will blow. Sorry, the winds will blow and the rain will fall. But the house will stand still. Then he said, then there are others who will hear the words, but don't do them. And they'll be like a man who built his house upon the sand. And the winds blow and the rain fell, and the house fell flat. My answer to your question, your question is simply every man must decide what he's going to choose as his foundation. And if a man decides that he's not choosing Sister White or the Bible or the policy, his house will fall flat. All right? No. I know I told you that you can talk some, right? But every Friday you're talking too much. Because we still need to get home. All right? So I saw your hand held up, right? But I want to move on quickly. The same, same principles. Principles of stewardship. Woo, thank you, man. Then we talk about building the walls, because if you're building something, you must not only have foundation, but you must have walls. Amen? Come on, church, come on. Amen? Yeah. Have you ever seen a man build a house with 4 walls? Just build a floor and roof. You got plenty blankets when you live, especially if you live up north. Sorry, live up north. Is up north or down north? I can't remember. Up north, we got it ready the first time. Then we talk about organizing the lifestyle. We talk about building the stewardship lifestyle. How do we organize the lifestyle? Then we're going to talk about utilizing the lifestyle. How do we make use of the lifestyle that we have developed? Then we're going to talk about strengthening the lifestyle. How we're going to make our lifestyle strong. Then we're going to talk about where we're at. Did they start right there? Okay. All right. Then we're going to talk about strengthening the lifestyle. Then I should have 2 more slides there. After strengthening the lifestyle, we're going to talk about financing the lifestyle. And then there's one final presentation called protecting the lifestyle. Right, so that's what we're going to be looking at this week. You get another preview. Again, a little preview all the time, little snippets. All right, so this is what we're going to be talking about this week. And notice when money comes at the end of everything. So if you feel that, if you miss Wednesday night, you're here about money, let me just talk about money next Sabbath. Amen. So we talk about choosing a foundation. We're going to go very, very quickly here. God is the owner, right? We recognize that, that's all right? Come on, church. God is the owner. God says He owns everything. Everything. Even those who live on the earth. And everything on the earth belongs to God. The one I want to just settle in your mind is that God owns everything. So why did God redeem you? We'll be talking about that just now, but I just want to extend a little bit on it. Why did God redeem you? Come on, let me hear some answers.
Satan slipping and take us away from the way.
Satan slipping
Yeah. And he took us.
and took us away. So God had to come and redeem us. Anybody else? Anybody else? Come on, you're redeemed. So if you're redeemed, you gotta know why God redeemed you. Because he loves us. Everybody agree with that one? Yeah, he redeemed us because he loves us. Anybody else? Why did he redeem us? I didn't get that one, sir. You're talking St. Lucy there, just talking St. Philip. He wants to give us back what was taken from us. Tell me what that is. Tell me what that is. Life everlasting. Want to give us everlasting life. Hallelujah.
The blood that he shed is not in vain.
The blood that he shed is not in vain. Okay, let me say, can I give you a reason now? Can I give you? God redeemed us because he wanted to continue the process that Satan stopped. What was the process that God wanted? He says, let us make man in our image and after our likeness, and let us give him dominion over everything. So when Satan came in, when he slipped in, what did he stop? He stopped us being created in the image, continued created in the image of God. He stopped us from having dominion. So know that we are redeemed. The process of being created in the image of God can continue. But also what comes with that? The whole understanding that we have dominion or responsibility. Whoa. So when we accept Christ, yeah, and we I come back. God is going to say, I'm going to make you a new man. The Bible says that any man that is in Christ is a new creature. He says part of recreating you is also giving you responsibility. I like the word dominion. Some people think that the word dominion means power. The word dominion means having responsibility. I'm going to drop this one on you. I'm going to drop this one on you. So you're responsible for all the things in the sea and the things in the air and every creeping and crawling thing. So you're responsible for the chickens. Did they say that one right? Did they say that one right? Are we responsible for chickens? Yeah? Come on, church. Talk to me now. Don't go sleep. It's not time to go sleep. Are we responsible for chickens? Yeah. We're responsible to make sure that we take care of them and we keep them alive. They think that responsible. If your responsibility is to keep them alive, that means you should kill them. Or you should not encourage anybody to kill them. Amen! Oh boy. I talked to one of my friends. Let me know when I'm going to finish now. But that's it. God says, hey, now that you have accepted Jesus as your Savior and Lord, whoa. Now that you have accepted Jesus as your Savior and Lord, I will now recreate you in my image, continue to create you in my image. And I also give you back the responsibility that you had given away. Hallelujah. That's stewardship. So every single member of the body of Christ is a steward. Amen. Whether you accept it or not, you're a steward. You got that sense? Yeah, you're a steward. So we come to a little definition of stewardship then. Hey, the little ones are here. Whoa. All right, look at that. All right. Now watch me, don't watch that. All right? Keep your eyes on the prize. This is Christ Jesus. Watch me now. This is our definition of stewardship. Read it for me, please. Stop right there, stop right there, stop right there. Stewardship is the lifestyle. The lifestyle, you're a lifestyle, you're a lifestyle. Watch this now, watch this now, watch this now. Everyone's like, my brother here, can I use him? Can I use him? Yeah? Yeah, can I use you? No problem? You rich? Okay, I ain't gonna use you, man. We gotta look for a rich man, man. I use Gary. We gotta look for a rich man. Brother man has a rich lifestyle. He goes into some orders. Yeah? And he looks at the Mercedes and says to the salesperson, see that car there? I need that in blue and pink. Yeah? One in the red. And walk. So that's a lifestyle. Yeah? That's how rich people live. Right? Gary? But that's how rich people live. That's a rich lifestyle. You flaunt it. You have money, so you flaunt it. Now, a poor man like me, can he use me? Let me use Gary again. He said that he don't know how the rich people live. Gary now, when he goes into Simpson Motors, he doesn't even look at the Mercedes. He goes and he looks at the Suzuki. Huh? You with me? Yeah. He looks at the Suzuki and he says, can you tell me how much this costs? Are you with me? And he asks him about all sorts of CCs of engine power, and fuel efficiency, and all that questions he will ask him. And if he can get a discount. Am I right? Yeah. Now that's a different lifestyle. That's a man that understands he has nothing much in his pocket and he wants to use it wisely. Yeah, man? That's what lifestyle is. Lifestyle is how you manifest your beliefs. How you manifest your beliefs. Yeah? It's your attitude when it comes to manifesting your beliefs. So if you are a child of God, then your lifestyle must reflect being a child of God. Amen! I don't know about you all, but I'm going to enjoy this one. That's what it is. So stewardship is a lifestyle. It is how you manifest your belief that God is creator and owner. Whoa. Let's continue. It says stewardship is a lifestyle of one who accepts. Christ says there are some people in church who have only accepted Christ as Savior. They have not yet accepted Christ as Lord. Yeah, they tell me these are the ones that come church at 11 o'clock. Yeah? But they have a Sabbath suit. You know what I'm talking about? Yeah? That they press on Friday just before the sun goes down. And they put on that Sabbath suit and they come to church and they go, happy Sabbath, how are you? And before you can respond, they're gone. Those are people who only accepted Jesus as they're just glad to be saved. Hello? Yeah? They're just glad to be saved. But I want to share something with you. It's not enough just to be saved. It's not just enough to accept Christ as Savior, but you also have to accept Christ as Lord. Which means that if you accept Christ as Lord, it means that whatever Christ asks you to do, you gotta do. Oh boy. Church not quite on. Can we tell them don't say amen to that one? Huh? I know you want to do that. I'm just asking. There you go. Since you're all looking ready to go there. It is not enough just to say I'm happy to be saved and then don't do what God wants you to do. So in order to be assured, you must not only accept Christ as Savior, but you're so happy, you're so grateful that He has saved you, that you will say to Him, whatever you ask me to do, I'll do. You know, that's what Paul says. Paul says for adventure, for some a good man with them. Yeah? By mistake. So if it was a day for the pastor to me, it would probably by mistake. If you go up in the sperm woman and they feed you right and they just bump it right out. But if they sit down and they really rationalize it and they think about it long, why you got dead boy? I said, boy, pastor boy, you're gonna die. See you the rest of the morning. Huh? At least we know that we were there to see every word about. But you have to make Jesus Lord of your life. That's a key in stewardship. That's what it says, one who accepts the lordship of Christ. One who accepts the lordship of Christ. And then it says what? I like that one. We're walking in partnership with. Oh, you all don't get it. So the book says they always get it. You're walking in partnership with God. You're walking in partnership with the Creator. You're walking in partnership with the owner. It is one thing to be employed by Carl Williams to pave roads, and then there's another thing to work with Carl Williams to manage the business. Oh, come on, church! What? God. Because I need to demonstrate this one so that everybody can see. Watch me, children, watch me. When you were in sin, you're on the edge of death. Are you with me? Yeah, if you take a little bit more, one more step, you will die. But Christ came. And He saved you. Hallelujah. And you're so happy that Christ stopped you from falling over, from dying. Then you say, you know what? I'm so happy to be saved. I'm so grateful to be saved that I'm going to make you Lord of my life. And God says, no, because you have made Christ Lord of your life, I'm going to ask you not to work in partnership with me. Oh, come on, church. So you're not working for God, you're working with God. No. I like to use this example. When you're working with somebody, you just don't walk off the job before telling them. Am I right? Come on, you don't just walk off the job before telling them. Even though things may get hard and things may get difficult and people don't give you the support, you won't stop working. Unless you go and say to them, look, listen, this thing getting a little rougher. I'm going to need to give up this position. Yeah, you with me? Yeah, so anytime you want to give up a position or anything you want to decline anything that God has asked you to do, you got to say to God, I don't think I'm able to do this. So I want to give it up. And this is what God will tell you. Nah, I got you covered. Yeah? I will give you strength to do it. So it means that if you give it up, even though God says that to you, it means that you don't trust God enough. Wow. Am I talking true? Yes. So you're walking in partnership with God to manage His affairs. You like that? God has not put you over His affairs on the earth. Hallelujah. Foreman? You're not a foreman. You put yourself low. Use the man over everything. Yeah? Yeah. You want to be a foreman? All right, you're a shareholder. I like that. You are now acting as God's agent to manage His affairs on the earth. Hallelujah. God has chosen you. God has chosen every single one of you who are here this morning to manage His affairs. Okay. All right. You're ambassadors for God. Yeah? You're ambassadors. You're heaven's ambassadors. Wow. That's what you are. You're heaven's ambassadors. You're here to manage God's work, manage God's business. God could have called the angels. God could have sent His spoken it. You know, God could just say, everybody in the world, accept me. And everybody in the world accept Jesus. One time. Yeah, and then you feel. Or you can send some big mighty angels to go and set me or else. We didn't do that. We choose some single, selfish people like me. And did they get that one right? Yeah. So that we can come like him. So what are God's affairs? What's God's business? Leading people to accept Jesus as Lord and Savior. That's God's business. Amen. Amen. That's the business of the church. When God has called you, He has called you to lead people. That's what the Bible says. That's what the Bible says, that we may show forth the praises of Him who have called us from darkness into marvelous light. You're not coming into the light. You're not coming into the light of God just to bask in His glory. Doesn't sit down, so boy, I'm saved, and I'm glad that I am. And bask in the glory of God and sit down in church and do nothing. Did I say that one? Every single member of the body of Christ should be working for God. Every single member of the body of Christ should be working with God. No one should be a spectator, but everyone will be a participant. But it's not enough to just lead people to accept Christ Jesus as Lord and Savior. You've got to help them to build intimacy with God. Yeah? Yeah? Yeah, we not just want to bring them in the church and say, put them down there and say, all right, now you're saved, you're in on. You've got to help them grow in intimacy with God. I know that there's some people in church who make you pray more. Yeah? Did they get that all right? Yeah, is there anybody in church who makes you pray more? Yeah. You're frustrated so much that you get on your knees all the time? Yeah. You should thank God about it that you will have a closer relationship with God because of that. Intimacy with God. And then bring intimacy with God. Then finally, you've got to help people to integrate God in their lives. So that they're Christians not only on Sabbath morning between 11 and 12:30. And then when they go home, they take up the rope. Yeah? Lasso the sun. Start pulling it down. From 12 o'clock, 12:30, you got people pulling down the sun. Because want the Sabbath finish. As far as they're concerned, at 12:30, when they leave church, Sabbath finish. And all they're thinking about is what they're going to do the night time. Come on now, talk to me, church. You know what I'm talking about. If I'm talking about you, say amen. They go home and they eat their lunch and they sit down and they begin thinking not about what is going to happen for AY, but they sit down and begin thinking about what they're going to do the night. Sabbath ain't over yet. And they're thinking what they're going to do at 8 o'clock. Who they going to meet? What places they're going to go? What they're going to eat? And Sabbath ain't finished yet. You know what they're doing? They're hastening the closing the Sabbath. And they got people like me vexed because they don't know how come Sabbath finish so fast. Because they want Sabbath go on long. But then they're done pulling up the sun fast. We need we need members who are Christians every single day of their lives. They're Christians on Sabbath, on Sunday, on Monday, on Tuesday, on Wednesday, on Thursday, on Friday, and then Sabbath again. And that's what we want to teach people. I love God. You love God? And that God has given us a job that may seem so hard. Lord, how am I going to do this? How am I going to be a good contractor? Manage your affairs. How am I going to? And God says, don't worry about it.
I'm going to give you some stuff. I'm going to give you some things that are going to help you do the work. So what helps us to work along with God to manage His affairs? The Holy Spirit. Amen? Come on, somebody say amen. Yeah, He gives us talents and abilities. Yeah? Everybody hear about talent and ability. Yeah. Every single man and woman and boy and girl has a talent and ability. There's something that you love doing. Yeah? That you were doing in the storm. Amen? Something that you were doing in the storm. What has God given us? He's given us what? Time. Yeah, 24 hours a day, it belongs to you. Because one morning you can find yourself dead. I just making sure that y'all listening, that's all. So the events that you thought that you had, you don't have it anymore. So we are alive only because of the grace of God. So every morning that we breathe in the breath of life, we gotta be thankful. And we gotta recognize that God has given us this time to do His work. Whoa! He has given us this time to do His work. And so really truly, when you get up and you pray, don't just say, well, Lord, thank you that I got a little breakfast to eat. And thank you for protecting me. You gotta say, Lord, I want you to bring me into contact with somebody today that I can tell them about you. Amen, Pastor. Yes. Not yet. God has given you healthy bodies. Woo! I'm going to say this because some of y'all may not be here when they talk about this. So what it says, a misuse of the body shortens the period that God has designated it to be used in His service. Wow. So when we eat things that we shouldn't eat and cause ourselves to be sick, we are robbing God of time that He has given us the breath of life to use for His service. That's a serious thing. We're robbing God of time. You might be God said, I'm going to give you this time so that you can do some work for me. But you eat what you feel like. Yeah? Eat all the dairy products. All the milk and all the cheese. Dairy milk and dairy cheese. Creating acidity in your body. Which leads to sickness. You're not eating the fruits. So therefore you can't build your immune system, which means they're susceptible to all sorts of viruses that fly around. You know when you do that? You're robbing God of time. You agree with me? Yes, sir.
Some people should have had drinking. When a person dies, who that they how she or she was to die. I don't talk about those who drinking alcohol and the minds are confused, they're going over somebody. I kill a wife and a woman with 2 children in the car. And when we, as you said, when we became, we shall live our body, we rob ourselves of the time that we should live on the earth, and we die before our time.
Correct is right. That's what it says. She says you have robbed God of time. Oh boy. Last time we do a presentation to this, people say, so Pastor God go home and throw all the chicken in the freezer, you know? But I'm saying it to you, just in case you don't make it over and deal with it during the week. You know, it's funny enough that we as Christians accept any wine, but we only take up the things that relate to the Sabbath, that relate to eating pork, that relate to drinking Coke and coffee. Those are the things that we take out and follow. But the other things that she says about removing sugar from our diet and not consuming dairy products, we don't use those. Because if we use those, it means that we can't eat what we want. I see that hand says, yeah. You ask a question. You got stand me asking the question so that I can see you. I don't think everyone can hear you, so I'm going to lend you my voice.
Really a joke, but it seems like a joke, but it isn't. My sister, who lived in Leicester, has some two friends who had to travel. They had to change 3 times to get to the journey. Each time they were serving pork. They never used to eat pork. They were masters. They didn't eat pork. First trip, they refused the pork. Second trip, they refused the pork. This is long journeys. But the third time, they were serving pork and they were very, very, very hungry. Right? And do you know what they say? Why, we better ask God, eat this and ask God to bless it. We might, and they ate it. Now, could you tell me, should they have ate that or starve?
As I was saying, you can take one asking our questions. I'm going to share biblical experience. Yeah, I'm going to share biblical experience, and I hope it answers your question. Jesus, remember there was an instance where Jesus fed about 5,000 people. Yeah, you remember that? Yeah. You know the one thing that we remember about that story is that he fed 5,000 people. Yeah, but you know there was one thing that we don't remember about that story, about that little boy. That little boy that left home the morning with 5 barley loaves and how many fish? 2 small fish. 5 barley loaves and 2 small fish. That little boy that sat down the whole morning, the whole afternoon, without touching that fish and bread because he wanted to hear Jesus. That little boy that I feel that around 12 o'clock, 1 o'clock, his belly started to go. You with me? And that little boy took those fish and bread. All of them. He's hungry. He is hungry. He takes that bread and fish, and he gives it to the disciples and says, give it to Jesus. Now when he gave it to Jesus, he did not expect to get back anything to eat. So that little boy was ready to stay hungry until he got home. Oh, he was ready to do what? Stay hungry until he got home because he realized that just give it. I mean, some of us would have said, well, if Jesus wants something to eat, I can put a fish in one bread and then give him. At least I would got 4 bread for myself. That little boy gave all, and he was ready to stay hungry. Yeah, until he got home. And you know what happened? Jesus had those loaves up and he blessed them. That little boy did not know that Jesus was gonna bless that and then share among everybody. He didn't. And so when that bread came around him, when the bread came passing, right? And the fish, I think he took home more than 5 loaves. You with me? All I'm saying is we have to trust God. Yeah? I ain't tell you no to should eat or yes to share. I'm saying we should have to trust God. Yeah? We gotta prove God. So God gave us healthy bodies. What else did God give us? Oh, I supposed to change that money. That's supposed to be Bible. But then we got US money there. You all know US money. That's EC money.
I want to back up a little bit. If God cursed something, you can pray to the curse something, pray to the judgment day. He can't bless it. No, he can't say it. He can't bless it.
Correct is right. What else has God given us? Influence. Are you grateful that God wants you to be his steward? Yeah? Are you grateful that God wants you to be his steward? If you're grateful that God wants you to be a steward, stand. Once again, we're covenanting with God. We're committed with God. We're showing God our gratitude and that He has done all that is necessary so that we can. Because remember, just when we say, God, I want to be your steward, I know God is saying, I have given you all that you need in order to be my steward. Heavenly Father, we thank you for Jesus. His death on the cross of Calvary. Because of his death, we not only have life, but we also have the privilege of working with you in the salvation of mankind. It is indeed a wonderful privilege. For this we thank you. And as we stand with gratitude and appreciation for your allowing us to be your stewards, to be your representatives, to be your agents on the earth, to manage your affairs, to manage your business on the earth. And so we stand committing ourselves to be the stewards that you would want us to be. Help us to use your Holy Spirit, the gifts and the talents, the body, the time, the money, and the influence to be the stewards that you have called us to be. Keep us firm to this commitment. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. Amen. Please have your seats. All right, we're going to take a break, 2 presentations. We're going to do some preliminary, some other things. We're going to do some announcements, some collecting some offering, and some other things, and then we're going to do the second presentation, which will be our last presentation for the day.
Alright, at this time we're going to have an ethical special visit from Cathedral Choir, after which we have our announcements. So, if you know some person from Cathedral, Chancellor, and Mother can come up front. So we have the choir, and then we have the announcements. So Cathedral Choir members quickly. announcement, we start with Capeville, we move on to Chancellor for your announcement, then on to Northern Lake. So Capeville first, Chancellor second, and Northern Lake.
Good morning, everyone. Some of these announcements will apply to all of our churches, but this afternoon here at Capeville, the program will be conducted by the Women's Ministries Department. So we would like to be back here at 4 o'clock when this afternoon's program begins. We would have heard that from tomorrow night until Tuesday night we'll be over by the Chancellors and the Adventist Church. On Wednesday night and Friday night we'll be at the Northern Lights of the Adventist Church. Next Sabbath, the first Sabbath in April, we'll be back here at the Capeville Seventh-day Adventist Church. Tonight, we'll be having a social. This social has been organized and sponsored by the Men and Women's Ministries departments. We would like to let you know that transportation has been provided, and transportation will leave here at 7:15. My brother Patrick Linton, who is the Education Secretary, he would like to meet with all parents of those children who go to our schools, both the secondary school and the primary school. Well, this meeting is next Sabbath. The next Sabbath after the divine service. I have a letter here from the East Caribbean Conference of Seventh-day Adventists. Dear brethren, greetings and a blessed Sabbath to everyone. Camp Meeting 2019 is here. It's a time of spiritual refreshing from the Lord as we embrace transformation, growth, and partnership. The communion service, a most sacred and joyous occasion, is a vital part of this wonderful experience. As such, we will be celebrating the Lord's Supper on Friday night, April 19th at 7 p.m. Each congregation is invited to join in this memorable service and receive the intended blessings. The service will be streamed from the Oldbury facility to downlink sites across Barbados and Dominica. Those congregations which are not downlink sites shall arrange to come together as emphasis will be given to encourage families to participate. Husbands and wives washing each other's feet as church facilities may allow. Pastors, elders, deacons, and deaconesses are asked to prepare as is the custom and synchronize with the ceremony as conducted at Oldbury. What a blessing for the entire East Caribbean Conference membership to meet with Jesus and be energized by his presence. Remember, as often as we eat this bread and drink this cup, you do show the Lord's death till he comes. Yours in Christ, Pastor Dr. Carol Dyer. He's the ministerial secretary, the acting ministerial secretary of the East Caribbean Conference of Seventh-day Adventists. I have another letter here from the Indian Ground Church. Dear brethren, we as the Adventure Pathfinder and Youth Society of the Indian Grounds of the Adventist Church, cordially inviting the Adventure Pathfinder and Youth Societies and all other members of your church to an evening of worship, music, and drama entitled Problem, Praise, Prayer, and Praise. So, this will be on Sunday, that is April the 7th, 2019 at the Mandan Quarters of the Adventist Church, starting at 3:30 p.m. to 6:30 p.m. Come join with us as we share with you how one man's life through prayer overcame every obstacle placed in his way. Let us lift our voices in praises and praise to God, knowing that He will do likewise for us, His children. For any further information about the event, please contact Mr. Sancher Jackman. Telephone numbers are given. Yours is Siri. Susan Kelman, who is the church clerk. For KFIL congregation, we would like to remind you that we still have the sick in our midst. Those who are shut-ins, you can give them a call, you can visit them as we continue to remember the sick in our midst. These are all the announcements from KFIL at this point. All right, this is an announcement for all of us. When we are collecting the offering, please write the name of your church on the envelope. Everybody heard me? Please write the name of your church on the envelope. And please note that all offerings will be equally distributed. Thank you.
Morning, church. From the Chancel Church. Choir practice this evening for all the choir members around 3 o'clock or so. And Sabbath, April the 13th. Just want to let us know there will be community services guest day. We can invite our members of our community, invite them in to come and hear a message, come and be blessed, come and fellowship with us on that special day. So choir members, choir practice this evening at 3 p.m. and community services guest day, Sabbath, April the 13th. Of note as well, please note that Sister Sonia Ali, her mother is in hospital. You know, a couple of months ago she lost her dad. Her mother is in hospital, so please remember her in your prayers. As you know, you will further announcements for the week coming, so you can bear those in mind as well. That's the announcements from the Chancel Church.
Good morning, everyone. These announcements are for the members of the Northern Light Church. This afternoon, around 3 p.m., we will be going into our surrounding communities of Hope Road, Northern Light, Collington, and Horses to distribute onions and to share out our invitations, inviting our friends in our community to our upcoming community guest day. All members of the crusade team, you're reminded of our meeting immediately after field work. So I'm encouraging all members of the crusade team to return around 4:30 p.m. for this special meeting. The Women's Ministry opening service, which was scheduled for tomorrow afternoon, has been scheduled to a later date. The Northern of the Adventist Church is having their community guest day on Sabbath, the 13th of April, and that is actually next to Sabbath. All are invited. Please bring along a friend and be blessed. The Social Committee of the Northern Church has planned a hike for Sunday, the 21st of April. I'm inviting you and encouraging you to please save the date on your calendar. The zonal induction service for the adventurers will be held next Sabbath afternoon, and that's going to be in the evening at the Northern Light Church, starting time 4 p.m. And the final announcement, I'm encouraging you to keep Sister Joseph in our prayer as she grieves the loss of her brother and also her brother-in-law. So please keep Sister Joseph, or we will keep Sister Joseph in our prayer. Thank you for listening, and these are the announcements for today.
At this time, we'll let our morning's offering. We'll be sitting for a while, so we're going to stand. We're going to, some leaders come forward. We're going to lead it in a hand where we collect our morning's offering. So let's. 469. Number 469, where we collect on oneness offering. Number 469.
All right, amen. I want to thank the choir. I think they did a wonderful job with those two numbers. Amen? Praise the Lord. All right, this is our final presentation for today. We were supposed to do something else, but we're not on the next side, and I don't want to keep you too late. Because I want you to get home and enjoy your meal so that you can come back again tomorrow evening. Amen? All right, wonderful, wonderful. Let's bow our heads. Eternal God and Father, once again, we delve into your word. We ask your Holy Spirit to give us understanding. Bless us to listen in Jesus' name we pray. Amen. Amen. All right, we look just now at being stewards for Christ, being stewards of God. You understand that we are God's agents on the earth. We understand that we're God's agents on the earth. I guess 6 people believe that. See if we can get 3 more. Get 3 more and feel good. We agree that we're God's stewards, we're God's servants, or we're God's ambassadors, God's agents on the earth. Oh, didn't you even hear the first time? That's our responsibility is to do what God has called us to do. So we want to look at now. We talk about the foundation being the word of God. So now we want to look at the walls, building the walls. So let's talk a little bit about walls. Walls gives us security. Yeah? Yeah, walls gives you security? Yeah, walls gives us security. If we had no walls in our homes, it means that all the things that we have in our house, all those precious things, before the H-plasma screen and thing, the thieves would be able to just walk in and take up. So walls gives us security. What does wall does? Walls makes our homes durable. Yeah? Yeah, come on, am I talking truth? Yeah, walls make our homes durable. It makes our homes durable. What does walls give? Walls also gives us purpose. So when we're talking about the walls of our stewardship lifestyle, we're talking about having a purpose. Having a what? A purpose. So let's say, how do we build our walls? How do we build our walls? We're going to look at the importance of spiritual gifts in the church. The importance of spiritual gifts in the church. Why is there a need for the outpouring of the Holy Spirit? Anybody want to hazard a guess? Why is there a need for the outpouring of the Holy Spirit? To prepare God's people for the final events? Yes, ma'am. We are sinful human beings. We cannot do God's work on our own. Anybody else? Conversion. Yeah, conversion. Anybody else? Anyone else? That's all we can come up with? To teach us about Jesus. All right, let's look at our Bibles to John chapter 14. John chapter 14. I'm giving you a chance to open your Bibles just in case. I don't want you to come to church and then don't open your Bibles and say you came to church and then get a chance to open your Bibles. So I'm giving you a chance to open your Bibles. John chapter 14. John chapter 14, verse 16 to 20. John chapter 14, verse 16 to 20. John chapter 14. John chapter 14, 16 and 20. Have you found it? Everybody's there? Yeah. Okay, you read. I'm going to stop you while you're reading, so that's okay. So you read. Stop right there. I love this passage. Jesus says, here's Jesus. I'm going to give you a little background. Jesus is about to leave his disciples. He's about to go back to heaven. That's what he's about to do. He's been walking there for the last 3.5 years, and now he's about to leave them. And he says to them, I'm going to talk to the Father about you. He's talking about not only his disciples back then, but he's talking about his disciples today. He says, I'm going to talk to the Father about you. You're part of the conversation between God and the Son. Oh, come on, man. You don't understand?
you understand when you're the topic of the conversation between God and the Son? you understand? You understand? When people talk your name, you get vexed. But when God talk your name, you're going to feel happy. When God is talking your name, when you're the topic of conversation between God and the Son, and they're talking about you. And he says, I'm going to pray the Father that he will send you. Come on, he will send you another comforter. Jesus understood that he was a comforter to the disciples. He was the one who was there to comfort them and to guide them and to teach them. And now he's about to leave his disciples. He says, but I'm not going to leave you comfortless. I will pray the Father. I will talk to the Father about you, and he will send you another comforter. No. The Greek word for another means another of the same kind. Jesus says, I'm not just going to send any old comforter. I'm not just going to send any old comforter. I'm going to send a comforter who's just like me. Oh, hallelujah! The Spirit is just like Jesus. That's a good feeling. That the one who came to replace Jesus is just like Jesus. What does it say about a comforter? He says he's an advocate and a comforter. I wish I had you in church and knew what it was. He says he's an advocate. You know what an advocate is? You know what an advocate is? An advocate is a person who speaks on your behalf. And the Holy Spirit had to come. The Holy Spirit had to come because we needed an advocate. You remember, I like what my friend said. Because we're sinful people, we need an advocate. We need somebody who can stand up and say, hey, forgive them. We need somebody to stand up and say, hey, may your grace be extended to them. Oh. An advocate. You're a Christian. You're what? Come on, you're what? You're a Christian, you've accepted Jesus. Yeah, you've accepted Jesus as Lord and Savior. And you want to do what is right. You know what I'm talking about? Yeah, you want to do what's right? You want to be the best person you could ever be. In fact, you want to be the bestest Christian. But sometimes, and for some of us, most times, and for those who take the special a few times, we make a mistake. Did they get that right? Yeah, did they get that right? Sometimes, God asks us to do something and we don't do it. We make a mistake. We fall short of God's expectations. But there's an advocate. There's a what? An advocate. Romans chapter 8, verse 26 and 27. Turn there quickly. Romans chapter 8, 26 and 27. I'm going to get real excited up here. You know? It is the word of God. I get excited just excited about the word of God. Amen? Romans chapter 8, 26 and 27. What does the Bible say? Wait a minute. When we read the word of God, you got to read it so that when it's read, everybody understands. Amen? So let's read together. All right, after 3. 2, 3. Go on. Amen. Come on, you got to get excited about the word. Listen to me. When you read the word of God, you got to get excited.
Yeah? The word of God got to hit your boom in your chest. You got to get excited. Watch this now. The Bible says that sometimes we are in situations where we don't even know what to pray for. Come on, somebody know what I'm talking about. We're so overwhelmed. We're so discouraged. We're so fearful that the words can't even come to our mouths. And it says at those times where we don't even know what to say, the Spirit. The Spirit, man, the Spirit who searches the hearts of men. He's able to take what you have in your heart, bring it here. You may not be able to transform it to the words, but he's able to take it from your heart and take it to the throne room of heaven with groanings that can't be uttered. Hallelujah. We're talking about an advocate. You know what it means? It means that when I'm about to do the work of God, when I'm about to do something that God wants me to do, and I butt an obstacle, when I butt a hindrance, when I butt a difficulty, I will not throw my hands up. I would already understand that I have an advocate. Hallelujah. You have an advocate. That's what the Spirit is. He says, he's one who searches the hearts. Yeah? And he takes what's in the heart there. The desires of your heart. The things that you can't even form into you can't take the 26 letters of the alphabet and put them into proper sentences. Well, that's a wonderful feeling. That's a wonderful feeling. And that when you don't even know what to say, somebody's there able to say it on your behalf. The church used to get it. It's like they do these days. Y'all don't face difficulties. Life down here, sweet. Because what part I come from? I face difficulties. I face situations that get you, that put you in a corner. You don't even know how to move. And it says that when you're in those situations, you're not alone. Because God, Father, Son have already spoken to the Father, and he says there are going to be some disciples down in 2019 who will be facing difficulties, who will be facing challenges, who will not even know what to say, and I'm going to send you somebody just like me who will speak on your behalf. Woo. So the Spirit speaks to the Father on the behalf of the disciples. No, that's a good feeling. I'm glad that God sent his Holy Spirit. Because if God didn't send his Holy Spirit and Jesus had gone back, then who would speak on my behalf? Well, you aren't good enough to get up to heaven. Yeah? I don't care what rocket you take. You ain't good enough. But God says, I'm going to send you a Spirit. So that when you don't even know what to say, he'll know what to say for you. And watch it says what? And he carries it and he speaks it so that you can understand the will of the Father. Amen! Hallelujah! I don't know about you all, but I get happy when I hear that. That does create a little joy in your heart. Yeah? See your hair trembling? Trembling at excitement, man. Some people, you can't remember. The Word of God is supposed to create an excitement in you. Are you listening to me? If you read the Word of God and you don't get excited, something wrong with you. What Jeremiah says was like a what? Fire, man. Fire in the bones, man. Fire in the bones, man. Burn you. What does the Spirit does? He says what? He instructs and he protects. Yeah? So when you're about to do something, when you're about to have an understanding about something, Pastor here is speaking, but it's the Spirit who gives you understanding. It doesn't matter how eloquent Pastor here is or are. You with me? Yeah, like what Pastor here is or are. So even if I put a lot of green verbs together, are you listening to me?
If you come with an attitude to understand, the Spirit will take the green verbs and make them right verbs. Are you with me? And He will give you understanding. Someone want to see my axe just now? Those who see the axe. The Spirit would have done take off the S. You would have gone past that S. So He instructs. And he what? He protects. Hallelujah. He instructs you as to the ways of God. And there come a time when you have to make a decision. Let me say this. Every single one of us, at some point in our lives, we are placed in the same position that Adam was placed in. You hearing me? At some point in our lives, or some points in our lives, or most points in our lives, we are placed in the same position that Adam was placed in. To choose God's way or to choose our way. And the only reason that we are back in that situation is because of Jesus Christ and the Holy Spirit. Because the Holy Spirit now brings back to your mind what He has instructed you in before. Are you listening to me? So watch this now. So it's Wednesday evening. Church is 7:15. News come on at 7 o'clock. And it's bringing on an exciting story that you want to hear about. But you understand that you need to be at church. You got to make a choice. Do I listen to the exciting story that's coming on the news? Or do I make my way to church? And the Spirit is going to come and say to you, when you come to church, you're coming to worship God. And if you're a Christian, as Paul says, we shall not forsake the assembling of ourselves together, even as we see that day approaching. Yeah. So where should we go? We got a choice. News, church. News, church. If I stop and watch the news, I ain't gonna go nowhere. If I go to church, I gotta sacrifice some gas and some energy. If I stop and watch the news, I can sit down here, go to my fridge and take something to eat. If I go to church, they ain't give me nothing to eat at church. News, church. If I stay and watch the news, I can get to hear the story. If I go to church, I can mess up on the story. News, church. If I go to church, I can get something that can give me comfort. So that even if the stories in the news bad, I can still got hope. If I stay and watch the news, I ain't got nobody to pray for me. But when I go to church, I'm able to share what I want brethren to pray with me about. Are you listening to me? News, church. I'm not even giving you a decision. The choice is yours. And I like to say this one because I think it's important to say. Wednesday night church. Sorry, I used the wrong term. Wednesday night worship is just as important as Sabbath worship. I only hear 7 people agree with me. No matter whether the rest of you all agree with me or not, it's true. Because they don't have a Wednesday night God and a Sabbath God. Are you with me? There's only one God! And so we all come to worship the same God. The God who we worship on Sabbath is the same God we worship on Wednesday night. And on Sunday night. When we as a church decide that we are coming to worship God on Wednesday night at 7:15. That's a covenant we have made with God. And if we make a covenant with God, we should keep our covenants with God. Are you listening to me, church? So when you come to church on Wednesday night, it's not because the pastor tell you to come to church. Not because the elder tell you to come to church. You're coming to church because you have an appointment with God. And that's why I think sometimes it's our fault as leaders. Oh, you tell me don't look at you? She tell me don't look at she? Well, lost. I go look at you all the time now. Wherever you is, I can find you out. I can pick you out. Sometimes we as leaders make Wednesday night church unattractive. Come on now, talk to me now. We know that we have the service to do. And sometimes we only got one person doing everything. On Sabbath, we got about 11. Are you with me? And everybody dressed up in the Sabbath best. You understand what I'm saying? On Sabbath, we got 2 or 3 special music. So on Wednesday night, we ain't got none. I don't know about these churches. On Sabbath, we got 3 or 4 organists to play the keyboard. On Wednesday nights, can't find one. On Sabbath, we got ushers to tell you happy Sabbath. On Wednesday night, we can't find one. We have relegated Wednesday night to other worship. But Wednesday night worship is worshiping the same God we worship on Sabbath. And so somebody should be able to minister in song. Are you with me? Somebody should be able to minister in music. Somebody should be able to meet you and welcome you to Wednesday night service and say, hey, are you listening to me, church? Oh, boy. I wonder how much people can get tomorrow night, boy. I wonder how many people can get tomorrow evening, boy. That's all right. If 2 come tomorrow evening, I talking to them too. Are you listening to me? And numbers don't faze me. I speak the same way to 202. Huh? Yeah, it doesn't matter to me. Whether 2 or 202, we're talking the same way. And they're talking just as long. Don't think that because it's 2, it can be short. Don't think it's because it's 2 that it can be short. When Jesus with the disciples, Jesus could have instructed them and protected them. But he had to go and leave them, just like he had to leave us. But we have the Holy Spirit to instruct us and protect us. So that when we make the right choice, we have placed ourselves or we have continued to walk the way that God wants us to walk. Amen. The Holy Spirit was there to comfort and to strengthen. Hallelujah. I like that thought. The Holy Spirit is there to strengthen you. Woo. I hope you didn't close your Bibles yet, but God will continue reading. I tell you, I'm going to interrupt you because this verse, I love this passage. It says, I will pray you a comforter who will come up with it. Who will do what? All right. Let's start back from the beginning. I will pray the Father that he will send you. He will do what? You ought to read the Bible, man. He says, the Spirit will abide with you. Y'all know someone forever me? You know forever me? Forever means, and as long as you're living, the Holy Spirit will be with you. Oh, hallelujah. You know what's having somebody to protect and instruct you for the rest of your life? To tell you which is the right way to go for the rest of your life? That's a wonderful feeling. To know that you always have somebody here saying, you know, this is the way. Walk in it. Jesus, woo, watch it now. Here's Jesus talking to his disciples. Jesus walked with his disciples for 3.5 years. He's about to leave them. And he says to them, I'm going to send you another comforter, but that comforter is never going to leave you. That comforter will be with you forever. Oh, hallelujah. It means that as long as I live, I have somebody who will speak on my behalf. As long as I live, I have somebody who will instruct me. As long as I live, I have somebody who will guide me into all truth. Oh, praise the Lord, man. Hallelujah. Yeah, amen. Woo. Listen, get me excited. I know who you are. But I get really happy when you understand that there's somebody who's out there who's working. It might be somebody in here. So it means that we have guarantees of comfort as long as we live. We have confidence in the promises in the Word of God as long as we live. We have confidence in the truths of the Bible as long as we live. We have confidence of guidance in our lives as long as we live. He will abide with you forever. So don't care where you go. And don't care where you go, no. He will with you. Don't care where you go. In fact, when you stop hearing him, it's not because of him not being there. It's because of you blocking him out. Are you listening to me? You know, sometimes my son, he's 17 years old now, he's a big boy. He has an alarm to wake him up on mornings. You can't talk to me. I can stay in my room and I can hear that alarm going, Oh, my son sleeping hard. Does it mean that the alarm is not working? It's just that he has just blocked it out enough that he can't hear it anymore. And sometimes if we repeatedly block out the Holy Spirit, there's going to come a time when he'll be talking and we can't hear him anymore. It says that he's the Spirit of truth, right? That's what the text says. He's the Spirit of truth, and as the Spirit of truth, he will guide us and keep us in the truth of God. Hallelujah. Oh, praise the Lord. I thank God for the Holy Spirit. Because if not for the Holy Spirit, I will not know what is truth. You with me? I will not know what is truth. I will be following every wind of fancy. Just blowing from here, and blowing here, and going here. One day I feel you should wear tight clothes, and another day I feel you should wear tight clothes. Are you listening to me? Continue. It says the Spirit of truth. Go on. Go ahead, you're reading. Okay, watch this now. Jesus says, I'm going to send the Holy Spirit because I have to go. You have to go. When the Holy you got to hear this part. When the Holy Spirit came, he came as Christ's successor. Are you listening to me? You agree with me? Yes. Jesus came to do some things on earth. Yeah? Luke chapter 4, verse 18 and 19. Turn here quickly. Come, just search the Bibles this morning. Luke chapter 4, verse 18 and 19. It says, just as Jesus speaking now, he had just come from being baptized. He's come out in the wilderness. And he says that the Spirit of the Lord has anointed me to do what? Preach the gospel to the poor. What else? Heal the brokenhearted. Preach deliverance to the captive. And to preach the acceptable. Christ came to save us, but Christ says, hey, while I'm here ready to save you, I'm going to do some stuff. And the things I'm going to do, I'm going to preach the gospel to the poor. I'm going to heal the brokenhearted. I'm going to set up deliverance. I'm going to deliver those who are captive. I'll do what? Set recovering of sight to the blind and to set at liberty those that are. That was Christ's work. Oh boy. Christ's work, the work that Christ did, was to preach the gospel to the poor, heal the brokenhearted, bring. Good, let me see that again because I'm missing it. Send me to heal the brokenhearted, preach deliverance to the captives, recovering of sight to the blind, set at liberty those that are. That was Christ's mission. And when Christ sent out his disciples how many times? 2 times. He sent out the 12 and then he sent out the 70. And when each time he sent them out, he said, go, heal the sick. Cast out demons. Are you listening to me? He didn't tell them go preach the 300-year prophecy. Who ministers to the needs of people? That's what Christ said. I read it nowhere at all. Christ said down. So let me explain to you what Daniel will see. You see that? Here's the way he come and explain the different horses of Revelation. Are you listening to me, church? What Jesus said? Jesus says, what people say really nicely. This Christ's method of witnessing will always bring true success. He mingled with men as one who deserved their good. He sympathized with them. He ministered to their needs. He won their confidence. And then he bid them follow me. I'm saying this because I want you to understand that the mission of the church is Luke chapter 4, 18 and 19. Sorry, that's not the mission. That is a strategic plan of the church. It's Luke 4, 18 and 19. When he said to the disciples of the 12, he said to them, this is what you need to do. He says, the rest of I don't receive you, that's off your foot. Go on. When he said to the 70, give them the same command. And then, watch it in Matthew chapter 28, verse 19 and 20, when he said to all the disciples together, what did he say to them? Go. Preach the gospel. Teach. Baptize. Then teach them again. Are you listening to me? Watch this now. The Greek the Greek word used there for go actually is translated as you are going. So he says, Jesus is really saying, as you are going, preach the gospel. No, he said, preach all things that I have taught you. Teach them, baptize them, and then teach them again. Which means that Jesus was saying to his disciples, go back out and heal the sick, minister to the needs of people, and while you're doing that, teach them all things that I've taught you. Baptize them, teach them again. What Jesus was saying is that as you're ministering to the needs of people, make disciples of all men. Oh, hallelujah. So watch it now. Can we use Gary? I'm going to use Gary. I'm a Christian. Yeah? Y'all are supposed to get. Yeah, I'm a Christian. So as I go into my community, I come in contact with this young man. He's a handsome young man. Yeah? Yes, yeah. Oh, sorry. He's a very handsome young man. Yeah? Yeah, everybody agree with that one. But he has some needs. You with me? Yeah, he has some challenges. But no, before I start to tell him about Christ, I gotta minister his needs first. Are you listening to me? No, I'm coming and I'm helping him. I'm ministering to his needs. And he looks at me, he asks me the question, but why are you doing this? And I said, because of Jesus. He says, well, I want to know this Jesus. Yeah, so I talk to him about Jesus. Are you listening to me, church? I'll talk to him about Jesus. I'll tell him all the things that Jesus did me. He accepts Jesus. Yeah, no, this is what I said to him. No, Gary, there's some other people over there who are like, oh, you are. Huh? Well, why do you say that? We go, and we talk to those people just like we talk to you. No, and Gary says, hey, I'm glad that you helped me over my situation. And I will not want anybody in that situation. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to come and walk with you. So he's going to become a disciple. Are you with me? I brought him to church, and he's not just a member. He's not just coming and spectating, but he's involved in the work of the church because he is a disciple. Wow. I'm going to let them, they're trying to, they percolate it over. I'm going to let settle in. So as Jesus' successor, the Holy Spirit was supposed to continue the work of Christ, which is ministering to the needs of people. Are you listening to me? Yeah, that's it. Preach the gospel to the poor. Bring deliverance to the captive. Set up everything those are our rules. Heal the broken-hearted. Bring recovery of sight to the blind. That's what we should be doing. And if as a church we're not doing that, we're just playing church. Thank you. Now watch it. If the Spirit, who comes? The Spirit now, unlike Jesus, is omnipresent. Because Jesus is a human form, he can only be one place at one time. Are you with me? He can only be in one place at a time. But he said, I will send the Spirit because I don't only want what needs to happen in one place. I want it to happen all over the world. And that's why he says to the disciples, go ye into all the world. So now, the Spirit is omnipresent. He's a Spirit. He has no hands. He has no feet. You understand me? He wants a mouth. And so therefore, he needs a mouth. And he needs some hands. Yeah? He needs some feet. And so, Christ has called us. Christ has done what? Called us. You see, you thought that when that crusade was put up, that they were just calling you to be members of the church. They were calling you now to be the vessels within which the Spirit will dwell. So that now, you are not just a member, but you are not the hands of the Spirit. Oh, come on. You are not the hands of the Spirit. You are not the feet of the Spirit. You are not the mouth of the Spirit. Woo! Woo! Come on. Woo! That's what you are. So every man that the Spirit dwells in cannot be dead in church. Cannot be inactive in church. Are you listening to me? Cannot be a spectator in church. Any man that the Spirit dwells in, understanding that the Spirit has come to carry out the work that Jesus has started, to continue that work. And the only way that he's going to continue that work is in you. Yeah, through me. Yeah, not me too. Yeah, I like that. Yeah? So the Spirit helps us to be truly Christ's disciples. The Spirit does what? Helps us to be truly Christ's disciples. He dwells in us. I thought people would be happy to know that Spirit. Nobody laughing, that and so on. Everybody got this song, look on the face, they're dead just when they say that. Sir, Spirit dwells in you. Amen. I say, Lord, amen. Yeah. You sing so loud up there just now. I heard you sing loud there. You don't want to hear a bit among everybody. That's it. The Spirit is in me to carry out the work that Christ has started. So Jesus says, I'm not gonna, God says, when you're working in partnership with me, but I'm not gonna leave you without the necessary things that you need to do the work. Then if you're gonna do the work of God, you must have the Holy Spirit. And I'm gonna say this, some people will question it, but I'm gonna say it anyway. As long as you have accepted Jesus as your Lord and Savior, He has given you the Spirit. Amen. So every single member of the body of Christ must have the Spirit. Whether you're listening to Him or not, He's there. Hallelujah. Oh Lord, I thank God. You said we're going to finish now. The other time we all did, we were here with, what time is here? 91? There's about 2 blocks. I'm here at 1 3. One time we 10, there's no 10 before 21. I believe in that one. That's the one I believe in right there. That one right there is I believe in. As far as I'm concerned, I must say that clock there. That one right there is the only clock that I see, man. There's the clock. Let's say one, quick, one. This is what Sister White says. This is the Holy Spirit is Christ's representative, but divested of the personality of humanity and independent thereof. Compared with humanity, Christ cannot be in every place personally. Therefore, it was for their interest that He should go to the Father and send the Spirit to be His successor on the earth. No one could then have any advantage because of his location or his personal contact with Christ. By the Spirit, the Savior will be accessible to all. In this sense, He will be nearer to them than if He had not ascended. So I tell you, every going to take back too. The Spirit there. You with me? Everybody in North Pole, Antarctica. Are you with me? If you got Antarctica, Spirit there. Don't care where you go. You got the Honda, Spirit there. Hallelujah. So it means that as long that there's a believer in Christ on the world, in the world, any place in the world, the Spirit is there to fill it. What's the able to continue to work through us? Because He dwells in us. He is in us. It says the word can't see it. So the only way that the word will see the Spirit is through you. You with me? Yeah? You with me? The only way that the Spirit can see. So the only way the word will see the Spirit is through you. Through me. He dwells in us. Hallelujah. Because we're in the watch for our continued work that Christ started. I preach the gospel to the poor. really broken-hearted. Set at liberty those that are captive. Recover yourself to the land. The acceptable year. That's our role as a church. And as we do that, we make disciples. We encourage those who we have shared, those who we have ministered to come and work along with us, to continue to work with God. God is such a good problem. That's a plan. Do you think I'm holding it right? Do you think I'm holding it right? I love Jesus. Because Jesus already saw it now. Jesus says to his disciples, he said to his disciples, he said, hey, go away to Jerusalem. Yeah? He says, after the Spirit has come upon you, you shall be witnesses to me in Jerusalem, Judea, Samaria, and to the utmost parts there. Jesus saw it now. When Jesus was calling the disciples on the day of ascension, when he was calling the disciples, in his mind he saw a vision. He had a vision of all of his disciples preaching the gospel to the poor. Bring the recovery of sight to the blind. Healing the broken hearted. Setting at liberty those who are captive. Bringing deliverance to those who are loose. All of his disciples went through time. He saw them working in Jerusalem. He saw his disciples working in Judea. He saw his disciples working in Samaria. Then he looked and said, hey, you know something? They're going past Samaria now. And they're going to all the parts of the world. Barbados is one.
Oh, yeah.
In fact, he get very specific. He said, St. Lucie. Yeah. He said, up or down? St. Lucie. And you know. That was Jesus' vision. So the Spirit dwells in us and speaks to us and speaks through us. Yeah, I've never been in a situation where you want to knock on the door. You know, you knock on the door. Anybody know what I'm talking about? You knock on the door and somebody comes to that door and they ask it, and you have a little dialogue going on. There's a little dialogue going on and the person asks you a question. And you stop. But you start talking. You with me? Yeah? You ever had that experience? You just start talking. Yeah. And then you can have a little out-of-body experience. You just say, oh, your body walks yourself in. Talking. And the person on the leg. You know who that is? That's the Spirit, man. Are you listening to me? That's the Spirit. What the Spirit did is that the Spirit knew that you didn't have that at the forefront of your mind. Huh? And you went back into the recesses of your brain. Are you with me? You went back into the hard drive. And you went go through some sectors. Are you with me? And you put it over the sectors and you do so. I'm putting that in front of your mind. Are you listening to me? That's how the Spirit works. But watch this. The only way that the Spirit will be able to find something in the back of your mind is if you put it in the first place. Because if you don't study the Word of God, and if you don't read your Bible, and if you don't study the writings of animals, if you don't understand what is possible for mankind, when you ask the question, you will truly stand. Because the Spirit has nothing to pull up. But that's something that you learned 5 or 10 years ago. And you forget all about. Yeah? But you just talk. You're watching this on the interview, and you're sounding that you're making no sense. And the person shaking their head saying, yeah, I never thought of it that way. That's a good answer. So you can't pat yourself on your back and say, why are you with it? You've got to say, Lord, I thank you for your Spirit. Amen? And let me walk with you. How is the Spirit able to work through us? Because we receive a gift from Him. Every single member of the body of Christ who has the Holy Spirit dwelling in them has received a gift from Him. And the gift is to help us to carry out our responsibilities as stewards. God has this plan down by. You with me? God says, I'm going to have some people, some human resources. They're going to be selfish, covetous people. But by the time I'm done with they do not apply the principles that I have to their lives,
they'll turn around to earnest, faithful co-workers with Christ.
Amen.
So the first thing you gotta get the Holy Spirit. Yeah. And it says that Spirit is going to guide you into all truth. That Spirit is going to instruct and protect. That Spirit is going to be your advocate. But that Spirit is also going to give you a gift. That you're going to use that gift to carry out the work of God. Amen. And every single believer, every single member of the body of Christ, you have a gift. You have a gift. So when do you need these gifts? Ephesians 4:12 tells us. Oh, I went back instead of going forward. For the perfecting of the to make all of us become better persons. For all of us need to be better. Am I making sense? Yeah, all of us need to be better. There's something in our lives that we need, but God has given somebody a gift to minister to you to make you a better person.
Wow! Wow!
Says, you see where you need to be in the church? That's where you need to be in the church, you know. Because in the church are all of the gifts that are necessary to help you to become a better person. When you're in the cave by yourself, you can't grow. All you can do is grow here. That's about it. You can't grow. Fingernails and toenails. But when you're in the church and those gifts begin to minister to you, you will grow. For the perfecting of the saints. For the work of the ministry. And as you grow in Christ, it means that the work will grow as well. What? As you grow, you will understand what God has called you to do, and you're going to do it. You get that? So before, when you were a spectator, because you're growing in Christ, now you stop being a spectator, now become a participant. Say amen for the brother now. Amen. You ask a question, Elder? How are we going to stop people from being spectators and becoming participants? Is when everybody utilizes the gift that God has given them. I like to use an example. Can I borrow? Tell me which. I want 2 chairs. Just show me which 2 I can use. I can use this one here, this one here, or the 2 white ones. This one out of reach. I thought this one out of bounds, you know. But come and help me lift the chairs in the grave. Oh boy, you man tell me using 2 women and see a big man like me. Try to use them muscles. You feel God give them muscles for nothing? You get them muscles to use, man. You ain't got that gift. You ain't got the gift for muscles. Put them right there. No, put them. But I want everybody to see. Put them right there. Yeah, put them right. Take them out. Put them one next to the other. Yeah. You see these 2 chairs, right? Everybody see those 2 chairs? Yeah. Those are gifts in the church. Yeah? Oh boy. This one here real comfortable. Yeah? I like this gift here. See this gift here? Everybody gives me praise. Everybody's compliment me how good a job I do when I use this gift. Yeah? Ooh, boy, this. But you know what? This ain't really my gift. This one is my gift. This is the one that Christ gave to me now. I just playing a part with this one. Are you listening to me? I just playing a part with this one because I like this one, and everybody telling me I look good in it. But this one is really mine. Now, if this one is mine and it's empty, it means that this gift is not being used. Am I right? Now, if all the gifts are to be used to edify and to make the church perfect, it means then that all the gifts are not being used because I'm using somebody else's gift. Now, if I'm sitting down with somebody else's chair, it means that somebody's standing up doing nothing.
But mine's empty. So what you got to do? I got to get on that one. But this don't give me much praise. I don't get much praise for this one, but this is the one that really suits me. This is the one that I'm really happy doing. I didn't mind doing that one because it was giving me praise, but this one, I'm real happy doing this one. And so it means now, it leaves this one vacant for the person who's supposed to do this. Gary, there's yours, my translate now. Come and sit down, man. You think that you bring that here for nothing? Huh? Yeah, you get the praise. You're very handsome. You will get the praise. You will get the praise. So now, what is happening now? All two gifts in the church are being used. Are you with me? I like to use the example of a pizza. A pizza is a whole pizza, right? Yeah? A pizza that's cut into 254 slices. It's still a pizza. It's still a whole pizza. Yeah? It's still a whole pizza. Even though I cut it into 254 slices, it's still a whole pizza. Now, if I take one of those slices out, no matter how thin that slice is it a whole pizza? So it is the same thing. If one gift is not being used in the church, it's no longer a whole church, because there's still a gift that's needed to help to minister to the church, so that members can be perfected, so that the work of the ministry can continue, and so that the church can be edified. Where are you going? You just can't get, when you get a gift right, you can't move it now. You got to keep that gift. You committed to that gift now for the rest of your life. All right? I can get up and leave mine because I'm coming back. Thank you very much, sir. Brendan, you understand that is? So you know what is important? What is important here? I'm going to just cut short this presentation because I'm going to tell you what is important. It is important that every single member of the body of Christ understand what their gift is. Identify what their gift is. Because you could be sitting down in somebody's chair. You could be blocking somebody from doing what they're supposed to do. You with me, church? Come on, do you think it's important for you to identify your gift? Yeah? You think so? Yeah? That's important to identify your gift? Yeah, because if you don't want to identify your gift, it means that you don't want to work for God. And if you don't want to work for God, it means that you want to remain a spectator. And if you want to remain a spectator, the Bible tells me that no lazy people ain't going to be in heaven. I'm going to give you something. I don't usually give you to take home. But because I'm this far down St. Lucie, up St. Lucie, I'm going to give you to take home. Elder, you want to share them out for me? Come, I need some quick hands. So, yeah, thank you, man. Make sure everybody gets one. Every adult. Come. Yeah, man. You know that with our church, that gift is, that means it got show paper. Come, man. Come. I got more now. Come, man. You think that we want to be here till after 1:15? Try and share them out quick. All right. I need another share. Oh, no, not this one. That's the wrong thing. All right, let's share them out. If you want, you can show it to her. No problem. No problem. Come. Start in the back and help them. You know who children are? Any teachers in here? Any teachers in here? Yeah, I know my sister's a teacher. Any other teachers in here? Yeah. You know when you show paper for the first time, you know children, you know the first time when you show the paper, what children do? Start to read it. Put down the paper and I tell you what. That's what you got to tell them. Put the paper down and I will tell you what to do. All right, if you're not yet received one, just put your hand in the air. We'll make sure you get one. No, you're not yours yet. Not as yet, right? When you get old like her. Sorry, or like me. Sorry, or like her. When you get old like her.
All right. Now, there's a reason why I'm not giving this to the little children. And I really want only persons who are 17 years and above to complete it. The reason why I'm not giving it to those who are 16 years and below is because, all right, okay. You feel to get the attention now? All right, everyone has received one? Has everyone been served? All right, I want you to listen to me now. I need you to take this home with you. This is what we call a spiritual gift inventory. The purpose of this tool is to be able to help you to identify your area of giftedness. All right? There are 18 gifts that are identified in the Word of God. All right? 18 gifts that are identified in the Word of God. And so we have listed these 18 gifts here. And we are making statements. You have 90 statements. How many statements? 90. You're supposed to respond to all 90 statements. You're supposed to respond to how many? All 90 statements. You're supposed to respond to all 90 statements. Now, if you're reading the paper, you can't hear me. I want you to hear me so that when you arrive at your house, you will know what to do with the paper. All right? There are 90 statements. These 90 statements are asking you about your experiences as a Christian. You listening to me? And your response in those experiences. That's how you identify. Your gift, your spiritual gift, is what drives your responses. Is what drives your attitude, what drives your beliefs. That's what your spiritual gift does. It drives your responses. Right? So there are 90 statements. 1 to 90. And there are 5 responses that you can make. Between 1 and 5. Now, this is not a test to decide who pass or fail. So if you put 1, there's nothing wrong with putting 1. All 1 says is that you're not gifted in that area. Everybody with me? And if you put all 5s, it means that you're gifted in all 18 areas. Which is not true. You with me, Elder? All right, this is how you complete this. I need you to complete it and bring it back tomorrow evening with you. All right? Please bring it back with you tomorrow evening. Don't leave it home on the TV guide. I got that one right? You don't got a TV? No, you don't got a guide. I wasn't speaking to you today. I wasn't meaning you. The purpose of this exercise, as I said, is how you to respond. You must be honest in your response. Everybody with me? You must answer honestly. It is not about what you wanted to do or how you wanted to respond. It is how you responded. Everybody with me? All right, now let me give you the instructions now. 90 statements. Each statement is a statement based on what your response should have been. Right? If you didn't respond that way, it's okay. It just means that you're not gifted in that area. If you read a statement and you have never had that experience in your life, you mark 1. Right? You have to choose between 1 and 5. You choose 1. If you have never had the experience, choose 1. If you had the experience, but you did not respond as the statement says, you put 1. All right? So you put 1 if you have never had the experience or you never responded as the statement says. So the first statement says, delegating important responsibility to others. If you have never had the experience of having to delegate important responsibility, you put 1. But if you had the experience of delegating important responsibility, but you never delegated the responsibility, you also put 1. If you delegated the responsibility a few times, you put 2.
Have you delegated responsibility? Sometimes you put 3. Have you delegated responsibility? Most times you put 4. And have you delegated responsibility all the time? You put 5. All right? So whatever the statement says, the first question you ask yourself, have I ever had this experience? And if your answer is no, you put 1. If you say, yes, I've had the experience, then the next question is, what was my response when I had the experience? Did I do as the statement said? No, you put 1. If I say, yes, I did respond, the way the statement says, but I only did it a few times, I put 2. I did it sometimes, I put 3. I did it most times, I put 4. I did it all the time, I put 5. Everybody understanding? Yeah, everybody understanding? Now, you are supposed to do that from 1 right through to 90, right? When you have completed that part of the exercise, you will see a section on the inside of the back page that is marked Spiritual Gift Evaluation Sheet. Yeah, you see that section? Yeah, everybody see that section? Now that section has 90 numbers on it. It has row 1, row A, row B, row C. Don't worry about that. But then it has 1 right through to 90. You see that as well? Yeah? Now what you're going to do is that you're going to transfer your response from the previous pages onto this section. So your response that you had for number 1, let's say you had 3 for number 1, you're going to put the 3 next to the 1. Everybody with me? Yeah? For number 2, you put 4, you put the 4 next to the 2, right through until you get to 90. Right? And then the third thing and the final thing you do is to add up the numbers right across. And the 3 highest, you put a little circle, and that should be your area of giftedness. You will have a main gift, which is your highest, and then the other 2 gifts are probably your supporting gifts. All right? Does that sound, is that clear to everybody? Come on, is that clear to everybody? So I need you to go home. Now, if you don't understand, I went through this with your first elders, and they should be able to explain it to you. You can call them up and explain it to you. That's their responsibility as leaders. Amen? Now, this is what's going to happen now, because tomorrow we're going to be working very, very quickly. When you have completed that, and you bring it back to me tomorrow, you're going to give me your gifts. Now, on the back page is listed, has a list of talents and abilities. I want you to look through that entire list, and I want you to select 3 talents or abilities that you have, things that you enjoy doing, that you will do them in a stormy night. Have the pastor come and shake you, or the other come and shake you and tell you, listen, I want you. You come to, let me go find somebody that's a singer. Yeah? He can sing, right? This guy here can sing? Yeah? Stand up so they can see you, man. Yeah. And get him a note. No. You're not. No. But I can't even get all the way down there, boy. No, you're not. It is something that he loves doing. If he loves singing that bad, that if Pastor Haynes or Pastor Jamil or his elder Lomar comes and shakes him in the middle of the night and says, listen, I have a sister that heard a song that you were singing yesterday, and she wants to sing that song now. She wants to hear you sing that song at 11 o'clock in the night. That he would say, no problem.
No problem.
You hear that voice, no problem. That's a Barry Manilow voice. Sit and think. Everybody understanding me? So it's something that you enjoy doing. So don't tell me that you like plumbing because you can stick two pipes together. It's something that you enjoy doing. Now, if you like plumbing, if you can really do plumbing and you enjoy doing plumbing, that's fine. But there are some people who take plumbing, they like plumbing. You can plumb? Yeah, you can stick two pipes together. No, it's more than that. Everybody with me? So I need you to identify three. Now, when you come with your sheet completed tomorrow evening, we have created a booklet called From Gifts to Ministries. And we will be able now, using your gift and your abilities, to identify the area of the church that you are best suited to work in. Well, I thought I would be glad for that, man. So it means now that if everyone has a gift and everyone has talents and abilities, then there should be an area that everybody should be able to work in. You with me? And so we're going to be able to help you to identify which is your area that you can work in, which is the best area for you to work in. But you will have to come tomorrow evening. All right? Now we're going to do that tomorrow evening, and we're also going to do the first presentation on how to develop your ministries, how to develop your departments, how to develop the area that you like working in. Because everything in the church is about growth. Yeah, everything in the church is about growth. I've spoken a lot this today, but that's my ability. Ask my sister. I like to talk. So even if they didn't have lunch, I'm going to tell me talk to 3 o'clock, I talk to 3 o'clock. That's just my ability. So if you got ability, you should use it, right? Do you want to identify your gift? Come on, church. Do you want to identify your gift? Because you want to be able to use that gift to carry out the work that Christ started way back when he walked the earth. And so God is willing to help you to identify it and to be committed to that ministry that he has called you to. You made a decision earlier that you want to be God's steward. You never made another decision that you're grateful that God asked you to be steward. I know you're going to make a decision to utilize the method that God has used you, has called you to manifest your stewardship through identifying your gift, identifying your ministry, and developing that ministry so that you can lead men to Christ, help men to build intimacy with God, help men to integrate God in their lives. If that's your desire, stand. There's a song that I like to sing, number 625. I'm pressing on the upward way. New heights, I'm gaining every day. Still praying as I onward bound. Lord, plant my feet on higher ground. Thanks. Lord, plant my feet on higher ground. Thank you, thank you, thank you. You also would have received a gray card. Yeah? You also would have received a gray card. I want you to complete that gray card. There are 2 sections on that gray card that says spiritual gifts and ministry. Don't complete those sections. Just complete all of the sections with the biographical information. Your name, your address, your email address, where you were baptized, your date of birth, right? All of this is the process, because what we want to, in the stewardship department, what we want to establish at each church is what we call a spiritual gift inventory, where the leaders of the church are able to identify and have a database that they can go to identify the giftedness of members so they will know who they need to do when they want certain things done. Amen? Does that sound like something that as a church we should do? Yeah? So I want you to just complete that biographical information and bring that along with the salmon color paper tomorrow evening. We're meeting tomorrow evening at Chance Hall for 7:15. All right? Some service leaders there yet? Organists? Where the organist gone? Where the guy that was playing so pretty for the choir? Lomar? Where you going, Lomar? Huh? But this is something that you got to see. I thought you only know how to teach physics, but you know. Here pulling cables like if you know what's going on. Yeah.
I'm pressing on the upward way.
New heights.
New heights again and every day.
Start praying.
Zion word come.
Lord, plant my
Lord,
feet.
plant my feet on higher ground. Lord, lift me up.
And I shall stand.
And I shall stand.
By faith.
My faith on heaven's stable earth.
A higher plane. And I have found. Lord, plant my feet.
Plant my feet on higher ground.
We're going to sing the last stanza.
I want to
The utmost height. Catch a gleam of glory bright. But still I pray. Till heaven I found. Lord, lead me on.
Lord, plant my feet on higher ground. Lord, lift me up.
And I shall stand.
And I shall stand.
By faith.
By faith on heaven's stable earth.
A higher plane than I have found. Lord, plant my feet.
Plant my feet on higher ground.
Father in heaven, we are so thankful for the privilege to be co-laborers with you in the plan of salvation. We understand and we knew where we came from. We knew who we were before we came to know Jesus as our Lord and Savior. We also understand what that transformation has done to our lives. We are people who are living with a hope that amidst the difficulties and the challenges of life, we do not despair because we serve a God who is able to do all things. And so a passion, a desire has arisen in each and every one of us to go out there and to be able to share with somebody, to tell them what God has done for us, to help them to be able to overcome that challenge that is facing them, to minister to their need. And so help them to know Jesus as Lord and Savior. Help them to have a closer walk with Him. Help them to become a Christian every single day of their lives. We're so thankful, God, that you have not left it up to us to find the materials that we need or the resources that we need in order to do this work. But you have already provided for us all that we need. We thank you for your Holy Spirit. The fact that He dwells in us and helps us to carry out and to complete the work that you have started. And so we ask, Lord, that as we go home and as we sit down and we look at this inventory and as we go from statement to statement, that your Holy Spirit will bring back to our minds the way how we have responded so that we can answer honestly and truthfully. So that at the end of the exercise, we will have a greater understanding of the giftedness that you have given us, the walls that you have given us, so that we can have a purpose in church, so that we can be secure. We thank you for this experience. And we thank you for how you're going to use that giftedness through us, so that in this part of the vineyard in the north, lives will be touched. People will be ministered to. Change will be in effect not only in the community, but in the church. Where we as your saints will be perfected. Where your church will be edified. Where your work will be continued. This week is going to be a good week. It's a week that you have put in place to happen for this church at this time. And we understand that the enemy does not want your children to know the way that you will want them to work for you. And we understand that the enemy will place all types of hurdles in their paths during this week. And so we pray, Father in heaven, that you will give them the strength to overcome. You will give them the wisdom to make wise choices. So that when we begin at nights at 7:15, that every single member will be present. Those who don't know how to get here, Lord, provide transportation for them. Those who think that they don't have the time, work it out that they can be able to make the time. Because we believe, Lord, that this is where you want your church to be headed. A church that is ministering to the needs of the church and ministering to the needs of the community, so that we can win their confidence and we can bid them follow Jesus. Into your hands we commit ourselves. Use us as you see fit. This is our prayer. In Jesus' name. Amen. And amen. I just want to remind you, all health leaders, if you're a health leader, I want to meet with you a little on the late side, but the stove will still warm it. Yeah? Amen? Did you have a good time? Come on, did you enjoy the presentations? Have you learned? Come on, have you learned? Also, praise God for that. And come out tomorrow night and we're going to have a greater time. Enjoy the rest of your Sabbath. God bless you.
We set our work aside, we leave our cares behind on this day of Sabbath rest. On this your holy day, we've come to give you praise on this day